Chapter 1039. Long time no see, Lan Si, Night King Zhenwu said calmly. I never thought that you'd be the first one to contact me among the 10 arbiters. Is it about Lu Yin? Night King Zhenwu smiled. That's right, it's indeed related to him. Don't underestimate him. Not only does he possess a secret technique that can divert attacks, but he's also an expert in the home of the gods. Lance was shocked. Home of the gods. That's right. You should have heard of the methods of the home of the gods. They've inherited a terrifying ancient civilization, and they can create or destroy anything. They're extremely mysterious, so you should be careful, Night King Zhenwu warned. Lan Si frowned. Are you looking for me to reveal Lu Yin's background? I know that you're confident that you can win, but there's no harm in knowing a little more. Night King Zhenwu smiled. Lan Si replied coldly, there's no need. I'll find out myself. Just focus on yourself. With that he hung up. Lu Yin loathed Night King Zhenwu as the man was too sinister and ruthless. The Day-Night clan had always been tyrannical, and they were not welcomed in the Starfall Sea. Among the 10 arbiters, Lu Yin's relationship with Night King Zhenwu could not be considered bad, but it could not be considered good either. On the other side, Night King Zhenwu put down his gadget. Lan Si's attitude was within his expectations, and it did not matter since he had already done what he had set out to do. If Lu Yin wanted to rely on secret techniques or strange methods to ambush Night King Zhenwu, then he had found the wrong person. Although Lan Si did not care about what Night King Zhenwu had said, he would definitely be on guard. He hoped that Lance would be able to eliminate Lu Yin on his behalf and save him some trouble. Planet Ping did not belong to any of the weaves, and it was located between Dark Mist Weave and Barred Weave. It had originally been the planet closest to the Astral River, and it was extremely glorious. Although it was only a single planet, the value of its creation was enough to make the leading powers of the various weaves go green with envy. There were billions of people living there, and many of them were representatives from the Innerverse. Unfortunately, a natural disaster led to the end of the world. The planet was completely covered in magma and oceans, filled with underground poisonous gas and terrifying creatures that could survive in extreme environments. Lan Si had chosen Ping Emperor because that planet represented a glorious past and a bleak future. This was his gift to Lu Yin. Although he didn't intend to destroy everything that Lu Yin had created, losing in one battle was still a huge blow to Lu Yin. Lan Si could see it clearly. He also hoped that this planet would serve as a warning to Lu Yin. More importantly, the energy of the Astral River could be seen on the Ping King planet. 2 days later, Lan Si arrived at the outskirts of Ping King planet. With a single step, he directly entered the atmosphere of Ping King planet. He looked down at the surging waves of the sea. At the bottom of the sea, there was boiling lava, causing the entire planet's seawater to boil. From time to time, strange creatures would rush out of the sea, only to be devoured by larger creatures. To ordinary people, this was an extreme planet that was not suitable for living. Lan Si's appearance broke the planet's countless years of peace. An ugly 5-colored flower with sharp teeth rushed out from the bottom of the sea toward Lan Si. The flower tried to swallow him whole. Lan Si's eyes trembled and his finger trembled. Star energy spread out and transformed into a heavy blow that shook the void. The flower was shattered into pieces and the entire ocean trembled. After that, everything fell silent as no one dared to provoke Lan Si again. Lan Si stood on the surface of the ocean, gazing at the faintly discernible star energy in the distance as he waited for Lu Yin. At this moment, countless people had arrived outside planet Pingwang. All kinds of equipment covered the sky and covered the earth. Countless media outlets were focused on planet Pingwang, broadcasting the shocking battle. Although neither of them was an enlighter, they represented the peak of the younger generation. Another 3 days passed and more people arrived outside planet Pingwang. Among them were quite a few hunters, important figures from various great powers, and even some enlighters who only existed in legends. The bespectacled Mist Child had arrived, and she hid in the crowd as she looked at planet Pingwang. Now that Lu Yin was about to unify the Outerverse, her usefulness was diminishing. The number of times that she could meet Lu Yin was also decreasing, and sometimes she couldn't even meet him at all. She could only report directly to Wei Rong, which made her very anxious. She hoped that after this battle she would be able to see Lu Yin again. Mu Nikhang had also arrived, but she had not come to see Lu Yin. Instead she had come to see Lan Si. Although she was from the Great Eastern Alliance, she hoped that Lan Si would emerge victorious and that he would not be injured. Doro had seen through her intentions and she felt helpless. Master, you've really fallen for Arbiter Lan Si. Don't forget that you're much older than him. Mu Nikhang rolled her eyes. You're still young. Doro opened her mouth as that made sense. Even further away, the old woman from the Nalan family who had once supported the Endless Weave's borders had arrived and was calmly looking at planet Pengwang. She had already surpassed 300,000 power levels, so logically speaking, she should not care about a dispute between the younger generation. However, she understood that these juniors would easily surpass her in a few years as they were all freaks. Aside from those from the outer verse, countless people from the inner verse were also paying attention to this battle. The 10 arbiters were not from the outer verse but rather the inner verse. The 10 arbiters' reputation for being invincible had been established in the inner verse. The Sword Sect, the Day-Night Clan, the Divine Grade Hall, the Wen Family, the Astral Combat Academy and so on, as well as the secluded Gu Flow Zone, the War-Torn Chaos Flow Zone, and the Starfall Sea which was trying to restore order were all paying attention. This was especially true for the Starfall Sea, where Lan Si represented the 10 arbiters. To Mu Rong, Ling Ke and the others, this battle was not just a battle between the 10 arbiters, but also one in which Lu Yin had left them in the dust. Not too long ago they had been competing against each other, but now they could not even see Lu Yin's back. On this day outside of planet Ping, the originally noisy space suddenly fell silent. A spacecraft descended, folded in midair and was stored in a cosmic ring. The person who had taken it was Lu Yin. He looked around and saw countless people, countless spacecraft and countless machines all around planet Ping. Lu Yin's lips curled up. Step back. These 2 words were spoken softly, but everyone immediately retreated. No one dared to say anything. This was the might of the Great Eastern Alliance's Alliance Master. In theory, these people were all under Lu Yin's control. The Alliance Master is invincible. A shout rang out from somewhere, followed by countless people shouting, "The Alliance Master is invincible. The Alliance Master is invincible." Lu Yin was amused. These people probably did not believe that he could defeat Lan Si, but before the results were out, they would still praise him to their heart's content. As for the media, they had probably even prepared 2 pieces of news. One was that Lu Yin had won and was extremely flattering, while the other was that he had lost and was just as flattering and comforting. No matter what price he would have to pay if he lost, at least for the time being, he was still the Great Eastern Alliance's Alliance Master, and no one would dare to speak ill of him. This was power, and it was the power that Lu Yin wanted. Even if he lost, the entire universe would comfort him. No matter what they thought, they had to say something comforting. Lu Yin looked towards planet Ping and crossed the void to meet Lan Si's gaze. They could both see the fighting spirit in each other's eyes. They had been waiting for this battle for more than 2 years. Lu Yin took a step forward and tore through the void to descend on planet Ping. He was less than 1,000 meters away from Lan Si. Lan Si calmly looked at Lu Yin. You can admit defeat and I will announce that this battle has been cancelled to save your face. This was Lan Si's last chance for Lu Yin. He was repaying Lu Yin for giving them a chance to survive. Without Lu Yin they would not have survived. Lan Si, as well as the people from Level Mountain Dojo and the Sea King's Dome, would have all died at the hands of the 6th mainland. 7th bro, do you admit defeat? Are you confident? The monkey asked. He had witnessed Lu Yin's strength, especially when he had fought the Little Arrow Saint. The two had been evenly matched, but for some reason he felt that a realmling like the Little Arrow Saint was not as strong as the 10 arbiters. Perhaps the 5th mainland's people were too good at concealing their strength. In any case, the more he looked at Lan Si, the more unfathomable he felt. Lu Yin's expression was just as calm. Since we've agreed to a battle, there's no reason to back out. Lan Si's gaze was filled with admiration. Ever since the 10 arbiters' titles were created, there have been fewer and fewer challengers, and in recent years, there have been no challengers at all. You should understand the word, invincible. We say that you're from the same generation, but we're all older than you. In reality, you're already invincible among your peers, so there's no need for you to compete with us. You might have the strength to fight us, but the gap between us is similar to the gap between you and Mu Rong. Although it's only a slight difference, you still won. That slight difference cannot be made up for. Lu Yin smiled and stretched out his hand to look at the lines on his palm. Not necessarily. Night King Zhenwu still hasn't shown you the difference between us. Lan Si asked. Lu Yin's gaze trembled and he looked at Lan Si. I should be thanking him, not him. I really didn't recognize the difference between us. Lan Si nodded and replied, I've already said what I needed to say. Since you want to fight, I'll fulfill your wish. I'll repay the favor you've done for my Great Mountain Dojo in the future. Seventh bro, I feel that. Before the monkey could finish, Lu Yin growled. Here it comes. Lan Si appeared in front of Lu Yin. You asked for it. Lan Si then struck out with a palm. There was nothing fancy about it. It was the overlaying stacks path 100 stacks and a 300-fold shockwave palm. Lu Yin's brows rose as it was actually a shockwave palm. He raised his hand as well and a 300-fold shockwave palm was unleashed. Bang! There was a loud explosion that shook the void and a giant spatial crack extended from their palms. One side faced the sea, swallowing up seawater and magma as it tore apart all sorts of strange creatures. The other side faced the heavens, causing the heavens to split apart. If Lu Yin had not ordered the others to retreat, some of them would have definitely been swallowed up by the spatial crack. Just the first attack had shaken countless people, and everyone who saw this scene felt their scalps go numb. On the surface of planet Ping, the collision between the two palms not only created spatial cracks, but also 100 stacks path that spread out in an arc. The sea surged and the void seemed to be pushed apart like waves. The entire surface of the sea evaporated under the enormous pressure, and the poisonous gas in the sky and underground formed a black fog. The sky darkened. The two retreated at the same time and Lan Si shouted, Again! He then struck out with another palm, but this time he did not use 100 stacks but 120 stacks. Lu Yin knew that Lan Si had definitely surpassed the 100 stacks level. Actually, with his physical strength he could also train in that level. Unfortunately, no one could help him deduce it and he could not do it himself. Against Lan Si's even more powerful palm strike, Lu Yin shifted his fates and then unleashed a huge burst of power. It was still the same 100 stacks palm strike, but it contained an even more terrifying power. This power completely evened out the 20 stacks gap. Chapter 1040. The gap between overlaying stacks increased as one progressed. Just like battle force, it seemed like there was only a difference of 20 stacks, but it required Lu Yin's strength to make up for it. A deafening explosion rang out once more, and a spatial crack far larger than the one from before spread out in all directions. All of planet Ping trembled and even the ground cracked open, unable to withstand the shockwaves from the two's battle. Outside the planet, spatial cracks spread out in all directions like lightning, and the spectators retreated once more for fear of being caught in the crossfire. Quite a few people were shocked as their power levels had already surpassed 200,000. In other words, this battle between youths had actually erupted with the power of an enlighter, and this was just the beginning. Lan Si did not believe that Lu Yin's strength could last for long, but Lu Yin did, blocking every one of Lan Si's attacks. This shocked Lan Si, but he was not surprised. If Lu Yin could not even block Lan Si's early attacks, then he would be overestimating himself. The two exchanged a single palm strike and retreated at the same time. Lan Si's gaze turned cold. 140 stacks. He suddenly charged forward and pressed down with a palm. Lu Yin raised a brow. Lan Si had relied on his higher realm and overlaying stacks to suppress him. Lu Yin was not in a hurry to counterattack as he wanted to see where Lan Si's bottom line was. Now that they had reached 140 stacks, it was time for him to reach the end. As he thought about it, a purplish-red pattern covered his entire body and red stripes appeared. This was 9-lined battle force, 100 stacks. Bang! Planet Ping trembled. Although the two had only exchanged a few dozen palms, their attacks were singular, and the space around planet Ping could not withstand it. Their power levels had already surpassed 200,000. Lan Si knew that Lu Yin had battle force, but he had not expected Lu Yin to have reached 9 lines. Due to his carelessness, he was forced back a step. You actually comprehended 9-line battle force? Lu Yin waved his hand and the remaining power tore apart the surface of the ocean, causing lava to erupt and shoot up into the sky. Now this is interesting, Lan Si said excitedly. 150 stacks. 500x shockwave palm. Lu Yin's pupils shrank. 100 stacks. 500x shockwave palm. With the support of his 9-line battle force, an enormous strength erupted as he struck out. The two disappeared from the surface of the ocean before reappearing. Their palms collided, and in that instant planet Peng cracked open. An enormous crack swept out through space, directly slicing apart a spacecraft in a straight line. At the same time, countless machines exploded, unable to withstand the force of the collision. At this moment, Lu Yin's power. Shockwaves swept through the starry sky. Countless people's faces turned pale as they hurriedly retreated. Back in the Outerverse, everyone who saw this scene was shocked. Lu Yin's attack was simple and straightforward, but the most shocking thing about it was that he was competing with raw power. Everyone knew that Lu Yin was an expert in overlaying stacks, but against Lan Si he could only use his battle force to make up for it. This was the 10 Arbiters. In the Innerverse, the collision had similarly shocked countless people. No one on the top 100 rankings could match the power of that attack. Ling Gong was astonished. With that palm alone, Lu Yin can easily become one of the 10 Arbiters. In the Sword Sect, Lu Xiaoqiu closed his eyes. It was too far away. Countless Sword Sect disciples were shocked. This person had been competing with Lu Xiaoqiu and Lu Xiaoyan back in the Astral Combat Academy, but now he had actually reached the level of the 10 Arbiters and could even fight against their eldest senior sister. This was truly terrifying. Night King Zhenwu's eyes narrowed as he was not surprised at all. Lu Yin had yet to display his true strength, and Lan Si was the same. As one of the 10 Arbiters, Night King Zhenwu was very clear that Lan Si possessed far more than what he seemed. However, Lu Yin's battle force had actually risen to 9 lines. Back in the Innerverse, he had only possessed 8 lines of battle force. Lu Yin's rate of improvement was too fast, and Night King Zhenwu could not wait any longer. Even if Lan Si did not kill Lu Yin in this battle, Night King Zhenwu would still have to act. This person's rate of improvement was too fast, to the point that it was unbelievable. Starsabil looked at the screen and her eyes flickered. She still could not calculate anything, but she vaguely saw something that coincided with the Astral Combat Academy's tournament of the strongest. On planet Ping, the ocean churned as the seawater mixed with magma turned into red raindrops that covered the surface of the ocean and dripped onto the two fighters' bodies. Lu Yin's hands trembled. Lan Si's 150 stacks was too powerful. Since Lu Yin could use 150 stacks, it meant that his physical strength was also extremely strong. Even with his 9-line battle force, his hands could not withstand the attack. However, Lan Si did not have it easy either. Lan Si was truly shocked. There are very few people in the same generation who can withstand my 150 stacks. I originally thought that you would be able to withstand 140 stacks at most, but your shockwave palm has actually reached 500 times. Lu Yin raised a hand. 500 times. Wrong. He then charged towards Lan Si. This was the first time that Lu Yin had taken the initiative to attack. He struck out with both palms and his 9-lined battle force soared into the sky. 100 stacks. 600-fold, shockwave palm. Lan Si's expression changed and he raised his palm. There was a loud bang as a violent sonic boom swept out. Following that, dozens of explosions shook the heavens as the two of them collided. The power of their collision distorted the void, and all sorts of equipment could not capture the scene. Their speed was so fast that they crossed the entire planet Ping and shot into outer space before landing on the planet once again. The screen could not capture the two fighters' images, and it was only when they stopped that they could clearly see what was going on. Regardless of whether it was Lan Si or Lu Yin, both of their palms were completely red and fresh blood seeped out of their skin. It was unknown whose blood it was, but both of their palms were covered in it. This was the ultimate confrontation of the overlaying stacks path, and it was also the ultimate confrontation of the physical bodies of the younger generation. Lan Si was stronger than Lu Yin in terms of overlaying stacks, but Lu Yin's multiple shockwave palms surpassed Lan Si's. Dozens of volcanoes on planet Ping erupted at the same time, and a rain of lava fell from the sky. All sorts of strange plants and creatures ran amok, and it looked like the end of the world. No one had expected that Lu Yin would be able to fight Lan Si to such an extent. Their power levels had already surpassed 250,000. Even when the 10 Arbiters had just been named, none of them had been able to reach this level of power. In other words, if Lu Yin was in the same generation as the 10 Arbiters, then one of them would definitely fail the rankings and Lu Yin would firmly be one of the 10 Arbiters. However, he was not in the same generation as the 10 arbiters. While he was improving, the 10 arbiters were improving as well. Someone told me that you still have secret techniques and techniques from the home of the gods that you haven't used yet, Lan Si said to Lu Yin. Lu Yin's eyes trembled. Night King Zhenwu. Lan Si replied, you can use them now or else you won't have another chance. Lu Yin's brows rose. Who gave you that confidence? Is that a battle technique that you've been training in? Lan Si nodded. That's right. The battle technique is called Emptiness Palm, and it's an invisible palm print. I'll give you a chance to attack first, but once I attack you won't have another chance. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. The monkey was furious. How arrogant. Seventh bro, this guy is too arrogant. Let's not fight anymore and not bicker with arrogant people. He was a little scared. Lu Yin raised a hand. Then I won't be polite. He then gathered star energy in his right palm, and a blazing sun appeared, illuminating planet Ping as if a star had descended. Twin suns. Lu Yin pushed the twin suns towards Lan Si, who swung his hand to shake off the blood on his palm. He then slapped out, but the blood was not his, it was Lu Yin's. He had used 150 stacks to attack the twin suns. Lu Yin's first sun had gathered all the star energy of an enlighter with a power level of 250,000, and it collided with Lan Si's overlaying stacks. The first sun split open and star energy erupted from it, shooting straight into the clouds and into outer space. Finally, it exploded in outer space and a golden radiance swept out, causing the surrounding spacecraft to lose control. The first sun's explosion destroyed Lan Si's palm, and the second sun followed suit and slammed into Lan Si's chest. Lan Si was smashed into the ocean floor by the twin suns and his body exploded. The entire planet Ping was shaken apart, and the ocean evaporated as the void distorted. Lan Si opened his eyes at the bottom of the ocean and all he saw was darkness. He felt an extreme pressure. This was a spiritual force attack. This person even knows how to use spiritual force attacks. Lan Si was shocked and he felt dizzy. His entire body was being suppressed by spiritual force and his body trembled. Within the darkness, a golden light descended. It was the twin suns. Lan Si's face changed as the strength of Lu Yin's attacks had exceeded his expectations. Regardless of whether it was a condensed star energy attack, physical strength, or spiritual force attack, Lan Si felt a sense of danger. He could not wait any longer. Lu Yin charged towards the bottom of the ocean and pushed the twin suns towards Lan Si. He did not believe that Lan Si's body could withstand the twin suns multiple times. This was not just condensed star energy, but also merged with cauldron chi. It was a battle technique of the 9 cauldrons and it was enough to suppress the battle techniques of his peers. Lu Yin was confident that the 9 cauldron transformation was invincible, and even if he could only condense 2 suns he could still fight against anyone. Suddenly, Lu Yin's scalp went numb as a terrifying rune line appeared in front of him. He instinctively dodged, but he was still too slow. Fortunately, he had the twin suns in front of him. The rune line struck the twin suns, pushing both Lu Yin and himself to the bottom of the ocean before exploding into outer space. Lu Yin's figure flickered and disappeared. Off in the distance, the heavens distorted as a spatial crack swept out horizontally. He looked at Ping King Planet in shock as Lan Si slowly floated to the surface of the ocean. He looked up at Lu Yin and raised a hand. Emptiness palm. As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Yin saw rune lines with a power level of over 250,000 descend from the void. He could not even see the shadow of a battle technique with the naked eye. If not for the rune lines, he would not even have known that he had been attacked. Even though he could see the traces of the emptiness palm's attack based on the rune lines, it was still very difficult to dodge as the attack was too fast. 3 chunks of fates and appeared in front of him. Lu Yin raised both arms and activated his 9-line battle force as he used the 100 stacks to forcefully resist the attack. The emptiness palm descended and Lu Yin was sent flying. The 3 chunks of fates and were forced back into his body, and his 9-line battle force was nearly distorted. The 100 stacks that he had used in his arms were forcefully pushed back, and his internal organs were shaken. Lu Yin spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body was sent flying 10,000 meters through the universe. He had finally withstood the attack. Countless people were stunned. What was this? Had Lan Si attacked? No one knew, regardless of whether they were from the outerverse or the innerverse. Everyone who saw this scene could not understand. Had Lan Si attacked? Night King Zhenwu looked at the screen with a grave expression. Lu Yin was definitely not weak, and he had even gained the upper hand against Lan Si when they had clashed head-on. He had even beaten Lan Si into the ocean, but what had Lan Si done to make Lu Yin so miserable? 9-lined battle force, overlaying stacks and even his fates, and had not been able to block Lan Si's attack. No one could understand what was happening. Even those from the home of the gods could not see the rune lines through the screen, so they could not understand what Lan Si had done. Was it an innate gift? Or was it a battle technique? At this moment the 10 arbiters' might was on full display. Lan Si's palm sent Lu Yin flying. Chapter 1041. On the surface of planet Ping, Lan Si raised his head and looked at Lu Yin. He had not expected Lu Yin to be able to force him to use the emptiness palm. The fates and in front of Lan Si's chest had disappeared. Lan Si also had fates and he had thought that he could defeat Lu Yin with 150 stacks in the fatesen's defense. He had not expected Lu Yin to be so difficult to deal with. With such strength, it was no wonder that Lan Si had dared to accept the challenge. Unfortunately, he would still lose. Outside of planet Ping, countless people looked at Lu Yin, but they could not see anything from his expression. There was no dejection or fear, and there was no excitement or battle intent that came from encountering a strong opponent. There was only calmness. Lu Yin stood in outer space and moved his arm. It hurt and his bones had probably been broken. This was the emptiness palm, and it was not as simple as it seemed. A single palm print contained more than 150 stacks, and it was a battle technique that pushed the overlaying stacks path to its limits. This was Lan Si's hidden strength. It was no wonder why Lan Si had always cultivated the overlaying stacks path and not anything else. The emptiness palm was enough to allow him to traverse outer space. An invisible palm print could not be avoided even if one could see the rune lines. Even if one wanted to take it head-on, they did not have a powerful defense or an unbreakable battle technique. Lu Yin raised his foot and tore through the void to return to planet Ping. He was now 1,000 meters away from Lan Si. That's quite a powerful battle technique. No wonder you've been cultivating the overlaying stacks path, Lu Yin praised. Lan Si looked at his right palm. I obtained this battle technique by chance. After obtaining it, I've never thought of cultivating anything else. This battle technique is naturally suited for me. Lu Yin grew serious. It's the simplest and purest attack, but it's unbreakable. It's indeed terrifying. Lan Si had a strange expression. You're not going to admit defeat? Lu Yin squeezed his arm. I can still take it. Lan Si laughed. The emptiness palm does not burden my body, so don't expect me to be the first one to give up. How long can your 9-line battle force last? Lu Yin's gaze grew serious. Lan Si looked into Lu Yin's eyes and then suddenly his body vanished. Lu Yin's pupils shrank as he looked around. Above his head rune lines rapidly fell. Lu Yin's scalp went numb as his fates and appeared once more. 9-lined battle force branded his entire body, and with a thump his entire body was smashed into the ground. He then pierced through Ping King Planet and was blasted into the universe, causing Ping King Planet to crack open in all directions. In outer space there was blood at the corner of Lu Yin's mouth, and the bones in his arm had been severely fractured. Lan Si appeared behind him once more, but this time his palm was empty. Lu Yin could see the rune lines, but he could not dodge them. As long as the emptiness palm appeared, it meant that he would have to endure it. The emptiness palm was a manifestation of Lan Si's overlaying stacks path, and it represented Lan Si's strongest attack. Even Fates and 9-line battle force would find it difficult to defend against it. Lu Yin was sent flying for the 3rd time and his arm was in intense pain. Fates had been sent into his body every single time, and he believed that his 9-line battle force would not be able to last much longer. Lan Si didn't say a word. He had already done all he could. His empty palm struck out again without hesitation. A force field appeared around Lu Yin's body, transforming into a towering tree that protected his surroundings. However, it was still pierced through by the empty palm, and Lu Yin was sent flying back to Ping King Planet. There was a loud crash as he crashed to the ground. Outside of Ping King Planet, in the outerverse and innerverse, everyone who saw this scene felt a chill run down their spines. It was too tragic, and Lu Yin had not been able to retaliate at all. He had displayed an unparalleled strength, but he had met Lan Si, an unbeatable existence. The Yu secret art could not divert the emptiness palm's attack, and Lu Yin could not even dodge it himself, let alone divert it. When he saw the emptiness palm descend, it meant that he would have to passively endure it. In the Great Yu Empire, countless people clenched their fists, and they were so nervous that they could hardly breathe. Wendy Yushan stood outside of Ping King Planet, her fingers white. What had Lan Si done? They could not understand at all. All they saw was Lu Yin being beaten up like a punching bag without being able to retaliate. At this moment, even the other 10 arbiters of the Innerverse had solemn expressions. Lan Si's hidden battle technique was too terrifying, and he had perfectly displayed the strength of his overlaying stacks path. His speed was also impeccable, and even Lu Yin, who had a secret technique, could not avoid it. It would be difficult for them to do so as well. On Ping King Planet, Lu Yin spat out a mouthful of blood. His left arm had been crippled, and he had used it to block the emptiness palm. Now he could not feel his left arm at all. This was the price he had paid, and it was all for the sake of observing. There was a boom, and the emptiness palm descended once more. Lan Si was like a god. Lu Yin raised his left arm once more, and his flesh had been torn apart to the bone. Scarlet blood dripped down his clothes. Lan Si looked down at him. Still not admitting defeat? How many more palms can you take? I have to say that you've shocked me. Even among the other 10 arbiters, there aren't many who can take so many of my palms. Lu Yin suddenly grinned, and blood filled the air. The shock is yet to come. The towering tree formed by his force field appeared once more. This time, it shrank infinitely and blocked in front of Lu Yin. At the same time, Lu Yin closed his eyes. Lan Si was astonished. Since you don't plan on admitting defeat, then don't blame me. He then sent another emptiness palm descending. Lu Yin's eyes were still tightly shut as the emptiness palm pierced through his force field. At that moment, Lu Yin suddenly opened his eyes and used his left arm to block in front of him. His 9-lined battle force and fates and defended himself while his right palm struck out with 100 stacks space render palm. Bang! Lu Yin's entire body was smashed into the ground once more, passing through Ping Emperor Planet and falling into outer space. Lan Si was also struck by Lu Yin's space render palm. This attack had caught him off guard, and his entire body was also smashed into outer space. Ping Emperor Planet violently exploded and flames filled the sky. Lu Yin and Lan Si both fell into outer space from the other side of the planet. Lan Si was shocked. Had Lu Yin noticed? The emptiness palm did not affect his body at all. In theory, as long as he had enough stamina, he could use it without limit. However, every time he used the emptiness palm, his body would freeze for a moment. This was the inertia that occurred when he used the emptiness palm, and it was unavoidable. Unless he increased his physical strength by 5 times, this inertia would definitely remain. If his physical strength increased by 5 times, the power of his emptiness palm would also be increased to the extreme, but the inertia would still remain. Unless he reduced the power of his emptiness palm by 5 times, he would be able to avoid the inertia. However, if he did that, the emptiness palm's power would be too low, and it would be better not to use it at all. The inertia was the emptiness palm's greatest weakness, but it could not be considered a weakness. From what Lan Si knew, almost no one in the same generation could withstand multiple emptiness palm strikes. Who would be able to discover this weakness? However, Lu Yin's physical strength was too great, and he had actually been able to withstand multiple emptiness palm strikes. Furthermore, he had discovered this weakness with his domain, which had caused Lan Si harm. Lu Yin panted heavily as he stared at the other side of Ping Emperor Planet. He had withstood multiple emptiness palm strikes, and he had finally discovered that there was no such thing as a perfect battle technique in this universe. The more powerful a battle technique was, the more likely it was to have a fatal weakness. This was Lan Si's fatal weakness. Every time Lan Si used the emptiness palm, he could not even defend himself. Even when he used his fates, and he could not do the same. His body had to freeze for a moment, and this freeze determined his defeat. Now it was time to see who would be the first to give up. The Great Yu Empire was in an uproar, and so were the countless supporters of Lu Yin in the Outerverse. Now that Lan Si had been hit, it meant that the moment of one-sidedly enduring attacks had passed, and Lu Yin finally had the strength to counterattack. His domain spread out and Lu Yin's gaze turned cold as he charged towards Pring Emperor planet. Lan Si similarly charged towards Pring Emperor planet. The two met at the planet's core, and Lan Si immediately used the emptiness palm. Lu Yin shouted and nightfall appeared. Darkness filled Lan Si's eyes, and Lan Si paused for a moment before attacking with the emptiness palm. However, because of nightfall, Lan Si was a split second too late. Lu Yin saw it in that split second, and his pupils transformed into runes that directly weakened Lan Si's right palm. The rune lines that represented the emptiness palm whizzed past, but Lu Yin waved his hand and activated the secret art, diverting the emptiness palm. This was the first time that Lu Yin had successfully diverted the emptiness palm. Taking advantage of the inertia of Lan Si's body, Lu Yin immediately appeared in front of Lan Si and pressed down with his right palm. 100 stacks, 600-fold, shockwave palm. There was a thump as a shockwave tore through Peng Emperor planet. Lan Si spat out a mouthful of blood as he was sent flying into outer space. Countless people were recording this scene, and they had all assumed that Lu Yin had been sent flying or that both sides had suffered heavy injuries. However, no one had expected that Lan Si would be the one sent flying this time. Lan Si's physical body had taken a direct hit from Lu Yin's palm, and his chest had caved in, leaving behind a palm imprint. Lu Yin hurriedly chased after Lan Si, but at this moment, Lan Si was unable to retaliate. Although Lan Si's physical body was strong enough to train up to 150 stacks, Lan Si's internal organs would not be able to withstand such a heavy blow without any preparation. Lan Si's defeat was certain. Knight's Descent, the secret art, the true scripture of Ian Flow 9-line battle force, his domain and the overlaying stacks path. Lu Yin had used everything that he knew in that instant, all for this moment. All for this moment that would determine victory and defeat. In outer space, Lu Yin appeared behind Lan Si and gathered star energy in his right palm. Twin suns. The scorching suns illuminated the heavens and countless people's hearts were raised. At this moment, even those from Mount Chong Dojo who had absolute confidence in Lan Si were stunned. How was this possible? Their young master had actually been injured? The twin suns wrapped around all of the remaining star energy in Lu Yin's body and fiercely blasted towards Lan Si. Lu Yin did not believe that Lan Si would be able to block this attack. Lan Si indeed did not block it, he was actually attacking. Lu Yin's twin suns blasted towards Lan Si, but Lan Si acted as if he had not been injured at all. This time Lu Yin had not expected this, but fortunately he still had the twin suns. Just like the first time, the emptiness palm collided with the twin suns. Ripples appeared in outer space as layers of ripples spread out in all directions and tore through the void. The spectators outside of Ping King planet retreated once again, and even the hidden enlighters were shocked. They had personally witnessed Lan Si being heavily injured by Lu Yin. Logically speaking, it was impossible for Lan Si to counterattack so quickly as there was a limit to his body. Even if his mind could keep up, his body could not do so. And yet, Lan Si had still managed to counterattack with an empty palm. Whether it was in terms of attack or defense, Lan Si had left everyone at a loss. Lu Yin could not understand it either. Lan Si's rune lines had clearly weakened, which meant that Lu Yin's attack had definitely severely injured him. So, how had Lan Si been able to counterattack so quickly? Peng King planet had been torn apart and it was not far from being completely destroyed. Lan Si panted heavily and looked down at his chest. A palm print had sunk deep into his flesh. This was the most serious injury that Lu Yin had ever inflicted on him. Lu Yin's left arm was only connected to the bone, and his flesh had been torn apart. His blood had dried up and he looked even more miserable. Thank you. Can't sleep enough. Cool breeze. Mountain man missing link. One must learn to be contenting. Amo see honey eel. Thanks for your support. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your support. Chapter 1042. At this point no one could deny Lu Yin's strength. He truly had the qualifications to fight one of the 10 arbiters head-on. Lan Si had not become one of the 10 arbiters by relying on the overlaying stacks path alone. Lu Yin had already secured his position as one of the 10 arbiters, but what he needed the most now was to defeat Lan Si. However, Lan Si was still a mystery, and Lu Yin could not figure out how he could quickly counterattack. Lu Yin could not possibly win. Lu Yin could forcefully resist the empty palm to observe the weakness of this battle technique and then think of a way to counterattack. He could pull the battle into an irreversible state, but if he could not figure out Lan Si's true strength, then no matter how hard he tried, Lan Si would quickly turn the tables. Lu Yin looked at Lan Si and suddenly thought of something. That was your innate gift. Lan Si panted heavily, and with every breath the palm print on his chest healed a little. My innate gift is to block out pain. Lu Yin's pupils shrank and his face paled. Blocking out pain seemed like a useless innate gift as it could not be used to attack or defend. However, for people like Lu Yin who specialized in physical strength, this innate gift was too powerful. Pain was a human body's instinctive protection. Only by feeling pain could one know the limits of their body. Once they felt pain, their actions would be restricted no matter how strong their willpower was. This was an instinctive reaction that could not be avoided. In battle, the slightest bit of carelessness could be the key to victory or defeat. Blocking out pain did not have any restrictions. No matter how severe the injury, unless one's body was directly shattered, one could still act according to one's will without any delay. Just like earlier, even if Lan Si wanted to counterattack, his body's limits would not allow him to do so. At most he could defend himself, but he had relied on blocking out pain to counterattack. Perhaps this would cause him to be even more severely injured, but it was still much better than directly taking on the dual yang attack. The physical body had no intelligence, so it could not tell whether pain was good or bad for one's body. As long as one was injured, they would feel pain. Only the brain had intelligence. Lan Si had blocked out pain, and his intelligence allowed him to perfectly control his body, allowing him to do things that normal people could not. Lu Yin understood why Lan Si had cultivated the overlaying stacks path in the empty palm. Everything was based on his innate gift of blocking out pain. Seventh bro, this guy's definitely a ruthless person. He's able to block out the perception of pain, which means that he doesn't care about his body at all. Even if his body cracks, he can still fight back. Seventh bro, stop fighting. This guy's a freak. The monkey shouted. Lu Yin clenched his fists. This was going to be troublesome. He could defeat a normal person no matter how strong or talented they were. However, it would be difficult for him to defeat someone who was seeking death. Lan Si blocked the perception of pain. To a certain extent, he was equivalent to a person seeking death. Without pain, unless he died, there was no way to defeat him. Now you know why I asked you to admit defeat? I admit that I have a whole new level of respect for you. You should be on par with me, but you'll never be able to defeat me, said Lan Si indifferently. His expression was very calm. The palm print on his chest was very deep and brought him great pain. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels might have been torn apart, but he couldn't feel it. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. He had an innate gift as well, and if he used it, he was completely confident that he could defeat Lan Si. No matter how much Lan Si blocked his perception of pain, as long as he hid in the time-stop space, he would be able to recover even if he didn't take medicine. However, he couldn't use this innate gift. At this moment, the entire universe was watching him, and he didn't know if anyone knew about his innate gift. The universe had developed for countless years, and who knew what legends had appeared in the past. But he didn't need to use it. It was too difficult to defeat Lan Si. This was a dilemma. Even if he had to expose his innate gift, he hoped that he would reveal it during his battle with Night King Zhenwu. If not for Night King Zhenwu's heart arrow sneak attack, Lu Yin wouldn't have been defeated so easily. The next time he faced Night King Zhenwu, as long as he could ensure that he wasn't ambushed by heart arrow, it would be difficult for him to lose. After all, he had the Stonewall scriptures which could withstand the Day-Night clan's spiritual force attacks. Seventh bro, are you going to fight or not? If you're not, then hurry up and retreat. Dragging things out will be beneficial to that guy, the monkey asked. Lu Yin was startled and he let out a breath. He had actually thought of Night King Zhenwu, but he still hadn't thought of a way to deal with Lan Si. The monkey was right. The longer he dragged things out, the more advantageous it would be for Lan Si. As he thought about it, Lu Yin tore through the void and sent a palm strike towards Lan Si. Lan Si's gaze turned cold and his body disappeared. Lu Yin released his domain and Lan Si tore through the void to reappear. Lu Yin then released his spiritual force, Nightfall. This was the only way to deal with Lan Si. Lu Yin used his domain to search for Lan Si's traces while Nightfall slowed down the speed of his empty palm. The moment Nightfall appeared, the Day-Night clan in the Innerverse went into an uproar. Nightfall was one of the Day-Night clan's few powerful battle techniques, and it wasn't any weaker than the Day-Night restoration technique. It was just that it wasn't that famous. Now that Lu Yin had used it, the Day-Night clan was furious. Night King Zhenwu's face turned gloomy. Lu Yin had actually copied Nightfall. Previously, Lu Yin had used Nightfall from Ping Emperor Planet's core, but now he was in outer space. The moment Nightfall appeared, Lan Si's vision turned dark, but he didn't use his empty palm. After being ambushed by Lu Yin once, he wouldn't allow himself to be ambushed a second time. Lu Yin released his domain and searched for Lan Si. Lan Si appeared behind Lu Yin, raised a hand and slapped out. Lu Yin couldn't use Nightfall continuously, but the moment Lan Si appeared, he tapped out with his Dream Finger. Although the Dream Finger did not exert spiritual force suppression, it could still freeze the void. This was a battle technique that came from outside of the upper three gates, and unless the gap between the two was too great, it was impossible to avoid being frozen in the void. Lan Si was no exception. He hadn't expected Lu Yin to have such a battle technique. His empty palm was slowed down, but he still managed to release it. However, the moment he released it, Lu Yin used the secret art to redirect it. This time he didn't use the Yin Evolution True Scripture to weaken the rune lines. Instead, he directly redirected it, so he wasn't able to completely redirect it. His body still bore half of the palm's power. He was willing to bear this half of the palm's power. At the same time, his pupils transformed into runes that weakened the rune lines on Lan Si's right palm. The Dream Finger traversed the void and directly pierced through Lan Si's right palm. The finger's power even penetrated his palm, causing Lan Si's right arm to split open. The two were simultaneously forced back by each other. Half of Lu Yin's body was numb, and his 9-line battle force was already on the verge of collapse. He couldn't even release his Fate Sen. Lan Si's right arm was shattered and blood dripped down from his body. He almost lost his footing. This was a battle where both sides were heavily injured, and it was a battle of endurance. The Outerverse had never seen such a desperate battle between the younger generation before. Before the battle, countless people had speculated on the outcome. Most favored Lan Si and felt that he could easily defeat Lu Yin. There were also some who favored Lu Yin, but even those who favored Lu Yin only thought that he would lose by a narrow margin. Now both of them were in a miserable state. In the Innerverse, countless people were watching their screens in silence. Lu Xiaoqiu, Mu Rong, Ling Ke, Wen Qianer, as well as the top of the top 100 rankings Tian Tian Tai Yuanjun, and the others were all speechless as they watched. At this point, both sides had used all of their trump cards. Many people no longer cared about who would win or lose, as these two were the most powerful of the younger generation. Even the other 10 arbiters had to admit that Lu Yin's strength was on the same level as theirs. In the distance, the astral river's energy was weakening. Pingking Planet was falling apart as it exploded from the inside out. This was the moment when Pingking Planet was at its brightest. It was the fireworks before the end of its life. Without wasting any time, the two charged at each other. No one would willingly admit defeat. If they did, the battle would have ended long ago. Bang, 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 bang. With a boom, the two crashed into Pingking Planet, which was on the verge of being completely destroyed. They landed on a piece of land that had flown into outer space. Lava bubbled on the land and some strange creatures writhed in despair. Lan Si raised a hand, but it was only an empty palm strike. Lu Yin's domain was constantly monitoring Lan Si, and when he saw Lan Si make a move, Yilin used his own technique as well. However, after using it several times, Yilin's spiritual force was already exhausted. Not only did he fail to injure Lan Si, but he also suffered a backlash as his body took the full brunt of Lan Si's empty palm. His 9-lined battle force finally collapsed, and Lu Yin had withstood no less than 10 of Lan Si's empty palm strikes. Even the other 10 arbiters might not have been able to withstand such an attack. Lu Yin was pressed into the lava, and as soon as he spat out a mouthful of blood, it was vaporized by the lava. Lan Si's left palm trembled as he pressed his other hand against the ground. His palm sank deep into the ground as sweat mixed with his blood dripped down. The lava beneath his feet gradually swallowed him up, and even his blood was vaporized. He stared at the bottom of the lava. Had Lu Yin lost? Would he be able to stand up? Outside of Pingking, countless people stared at the land and the lava. At the bottom of the lava, Lu Yin opened his eyes. His left arm was powerless, and his 9-lined battle force had cracked open. He could not release his fates, and his spiritual force was close to exhaustion. Even his right palm could not display any powerful attacks, and his right finger had been crippled because he had used the dream finger and overlaying stacks. He had rarely experienced such a desperate battle. After cultivating for almost 12 years, he had rarely experienced such a desperate battle. The red lava obstructed his vision, and it also obstructed the surveillance outside of Peking. Lu Yin slowly opened his right palm. It would be disrespectful to hold back against one of the 10 arbiters. As he thought about it, he shielded the monkey and his die appeared. He tapped it out. This was not considered cheating as the die was his innate gift, just like Lan Si's ability to block out pain. If Lan Si did not have his innate gift to block out pain, then the battle might have already ended. The die slowly spun and Lu Yin hoped that he would roll enhance. As long as he could enter the time-stop space, then everything would be under his control. At that moment, Lu Yin's expression suddenly changed. Within his domain he saw Lan Si appear directly above him. Star energy surged out and pushed away the lava. Lu Yin hurriedly used his force field to create a tree to stop Lan Si, but it was to no avail. Lan Si's gaze was piercingly cold as he raised his left palm and struck out. This was not an empty palm but rather 100 stacks attack. At that moment Lu Yin's die stopped spinning. It was an enhance. There was a thump as Lu Yin was struck head-on. His entire body pierced through the land and outer space and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Lan Si stood on the land and looked at Lu Yin. I don't want to kill you. It's time to admit defeat. Your body has reached its limit. Thank you, brothers, for your support. Thank you. I'll work hard to write more chapters. Thank you, brothers, for your support. Chapter 1043. Lu Yin finally stabilized himself and coughed twice as he panted heavily. The die had already disappeared and his lips curled up. Was this the innate gift that blocked out pain? How interesting. The die rolled 5 pips to borrow an innate gift. Once the die rolled 5 pips, the user had to touch the person with the innate gift within 10 seconds to borrow that person's innate gift. This point had never been very useful, but it had unexpectedly come in handy at this moment. The instant the die rolled 5 pips, Lan Si's attack descended. He had taken the initiative to touch Lu Yin, and although he had dealt damage he had also used an innate gift. Lan Si looked at Lu Yin strangely. Was he smiling? Lu Yin was indeed smiling and countless people saw it. Everyone was confused. Smiling? Why? How could he smile at a time like this? How could someone who couldn't even stabilize his battle force and whose left arm was crippled be able to smile? Lan Si felt uneasy and he subconsciously raised his left hand, only to see an empty palm. Lu Yin's eyes widened and he raised his crippled left arm. Just as Lan Si was about to use the empty palm, Lu Yin tapped out with his dream finger. Under his domain's perception, Lu Yin had frozen the void and delayed the empty palm. His pupils transformed into runes that weakened Lan Si's left palm, exactly the same as when he had dealt with Lan Si's right palm. Lan Si's empty palm was still released and even he couldn't stop it. Lu Yin had used the Yu secret art to divert the attack, and the dream finger had similarly crippled Lan Si's right palm, piercing through his left palm and shattering his entire left arm. Lu Yin had assumed that the Yu secret art wouldn't be able to completely divert the empty palm and that he would still have to endure half of it. Who would have thought that the Yu secret art would be able to completely divert the attack? Lan Si had also reached his limit, or rather he had reached his limit long ago. However, because the pain had been blocked out, he had appeared to be able to continue fighting. In reality his body could no longer move. With both arms crippled, Lan Si was stunned. He stared at Lu Yin in disbelief as he slowly collapsed. Lu Yin's left arm was also trembling violently. The innate gift he had borrowed could only be used once, and once it was used up, the pain swept through him like a tidal wave, almost causing him to faint. He barely managed to remain standing in space as he watched the continent fly further and further away. Everyone's attention had shifted from Lu Yin to the continent, where Lan Si had fallen. One of the 10 arbiters, Lan Si, had fallen first. The 10 arbiters of the top 100 rankings took to the skies. This was the most accurate assessment of the younger generation. The 10 arbiters were invincible. Since ancient times, only the 10 people of this generation could be called the 10 arbiters. There had never been anyone like them before. It was common knowledge that the 10 arbiters were invincible. But now Lan Si of the 10 arbiters had fallen. He had truly fallen. This scene silenced the entire universe. Lan Si's victory was expected, but his defeat was enough to cause a sensation. This sensation was like the opening of a new era, and a new 10 arbiters was born. Lu Yin. In the Outerverse, the Frostwave Weave was in an uproar as the entire Great Yu Empire celebrated and countless people cheered. The vast Dearth Sect, the Taimal Palace, the Six-Fingered Tribe, the Tricolored Federation, the Even Ground Palace, and the other forces that had joined the Great Eastern Alliance felt both proud and bitter at the same time. Countless indescribably complex emotions welled up in their hearts. Some felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders as they looked at Lu Yin. They saw hope for the future and they knew that this ship would continue to sail. Others felt as if they would never be able to disembark. The battle on Ping King Planet was no longer just a battle between the younger generation. Their power levels had already neared 300,000, and in the entire Outerverse, their power levels were enough to rank them in the top 20. And that was without the use of external items. Once they did, no one knew how much power they would be able to display. On Xenu Star, Wei Rong exhaled. It seemed that no one could stop them. On Wan Qianxing, Qiong Shir covered her head. This freak. Madame Nayland smiled. Her initial decision had been correct. This person no longer feared the 10 arbiters and he could win in a fair battle. On Heavenly Lush Planet, Zi Tianchuan helplessly dispelled that little bit of delusion. From now on they would still have to live under Lu Yin's shadow. On Aegis, the black-masked assassin closed his eyes. He would just follow this ship and continue on regardless of the outcome. Many familiar yet unfamiliar people sighed as they looked at Lu Yin, who was standing tall in outer space. They did not know how to describe it. At this moment Lu Yin was dazzling. Even the other 10 arbiters of the Innerverse were looking at him. This person had already arrived in front of them and was exerting pressure on them. Night King Zhenwu's gaze was cold, but he did not say a word. He turned to look at the stone tablet in the ancestral land. This person had to be killed. Leaving him alive would only bring about disaster sooner or later. Outside Ping King Planet, Wendy Yushan sighed in relief. How long had it been since she had looked down on this person? To a cultivator it was merely the blink of an eye. Lu Yin was already standing at a height that surpassed her own, and he was climbing up step by step with great difficulty. Although it was miserable, his progress was steady. The bespectacled Mistchild looked at Lu Yin with some fear. He had changed since the last time they had met. He had become so terrifying and unfathomable. In outer space, Lu Yin knew that the entire universe's attention was focused on him. He slowly flew towards land where Lan Si's eyes were wide open. Lu Yin did not know what he was looking at. Lan Si was conscious but his body could not move. He had already surpassed his limits. Although blocking out his pain perception had increased his strength, it had also prevented him from knowing the limits of his own body. Even if Lu Yin's final attack had been an ordinary palm strike, it had still been enough to topple him. A shadow shrouded Lu Yin as he walked over to Lan Si's side and looked down. "You've lost." Lan Si's gaze was calm and there was no unwillingness. He had already tried his best and a loss was a loss. There was nothing else he could say. "Congratulations, you've won." Lu Yin slowly sat down cross-legged beside Lan Si and retrieved a flask of wine from his cosmic ring. Lan Si looked at him calmly. Lu Yin was stunned. He had forgotten that he could not move, so he opened the flask and placed it beside Lan Si. Lan Si used his remaining star energy to control the flask, causing the wine to flow into his mouth. Lu Yin's entire body trembled from the pain, but he was much better off than Lan Si, as his physical strength had already surpassed Lan Si's. At this moment he was even more grateful to Night King Zhenwu. If Night King Zhenwu had not severely injured him to the point of near death, he would not have been able to circulate the arcane art of life and death to strengthen his body once again. If not for that encounter, Lu Yin would have definitely lost this battle with Lan Si, and they would not have ended up in such a state. He had won because of Zhenwu and he had also lost because of Zhenwu. "How does it feel to defeat me?" Lan Si asked calmly as he looked at outer space. Lu Yin smiled bitterly. "I didn't expect you to be so strong." Lan Si was flabbergasted. "I should be the one saying that. I never thought that I would lose." Lu Yin sighed. 150 stacks. There aren't many in the younger generation who can withstand that kind of attack. Plus, you also have the empty palm and the innate gift of blocking pain. You really are an invincible 10 arbiters. Lan Si calmly replied, Are you praising yourself? Lu Yin shook his head and took a sip of wine. I've experienced many battles and I've been on the brink of death a few times. But the most satisfying battle was still with you. You and I are the same type of people. This is also why I looked for you after you tied my record in the Astral Combat Academy. You and I are the same type of people. In the distance, countless people watched on, not daring to approach. A spacecraft arrived and Elder Iron and the other experts from the Great Mountain Dojo rushed over, but they were blocked by a group of people. Lan Baobao immediately attacked, but the person blocking them was not weak. It was the old woman from the Nalan family. Lan Baobao's attack was completely ineffective. Get out of the way. Lan Baobao shouted as he anxiously looked into the distance, afraid that Lu Yin would do something to Lan Si. Beside him, Elder Iron was much calmer. He was not worried that Lu Yin would do anything to the young master. With so many people watching, the young master had already been defeated. If Lu Yin continued to attack, the universe would not tolerate him. Elder Iron just wanted to treat the young master as soon as possible. The old woman shook her head. I was ordered to ensure a fair battle between the two. Before they speak, none of you are allowed to approach. Elder Iron was anxious. The young master has already been defeated. What else do you want? The old woman's gaze was resolute. At this moment, many experts appeared in the surroundings. There were more than 5 enlighters among them, including the Moksword sect's head, Kuyun and Mafioso planet's topmost. There were also other experts hiding in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to act. They were all experts from the Great Eastern Alliance, and Lu Yin's victory had strengthened their resolve to protect the Great Eastern Alliance. If the people from the Great Mountain Dojo were allowed to approach Lu Yin, then they would no longer be able to survive, and the so-called Great Eastern Alliance would become a joke. Elder Iron was sullen. Back in the astral graveyard, he had encountered a similar situation when he had tried to cause trouble for Wei Rong. Lu Yin's influence was too great, and wherever he appeared, there would always be experts protecting him. Above the floating continent in outer space, Lu Yin took out a pill and handed it to Lan Si. Do you dare to eat this? Lan Si opened his mouth. Lu Yin tossed the pill inside. In the distance, many people saw this and Elder Iron was shocked. Young master, be careful. This might be a trap. Lu Yin, what did you feed my brother? Lan Baobao shouted. Lu Yin laughed and looked into the distance. I've already won. What else can I do? What are you afraid of? Ah. Lu Yin laughed. Outside of Pingking Planet, countless people from the Great Eastern Alliance laughed as well. They did not know why, but they just wanted to laugh, so they laughed along with Lu Yin. In front of their screens, countless people from the outer verse laughed as well, and they laughed very happily. In the inner verse, everyone who saw this scene had an indescribable feeling. It was oppressive and sullen, as if the entire outer verse had already fallen into Lu Yin's hands. If he laughed, then others could laugh, but if he cried, then countless people would suffer. This was Lu Yin's current power. He represented the interests of countless people, and he was steering the largest ship in history. Elder Iron and the rest of the people from Zhou Xian Dojo were like lone boats in the middle of the ocean. They looked around in a daze as an invisible pressure enveloped them, preventing them from moving. At that moment, Lan Si's shattered arm gradually healed and he moved his fingers. It was painful, a heart-wrenching pain, but he could still move. He raised a hand and waved. Step down. Let's have a chat. Elder Iron and the rest stopped talking. Lan Baobao looked at Lu Yin with a complicated expression, but no one knew what she was thinking. Lu Yin laughed heartily, as he had released all of the repressed emotions that had accumulated over the past few days. He had displayed his full strength in his battle with Lan Si, and it had been too satisfying. Only by laughing could he release his emotions. Lan Si looked at Lu Yin and slowly sat up. He picked up a flask of wine and drank it all in one gulp before coughing a few times. That big fellow looked like he was in his 50s, but since he was not exposed to light, it was impossible to tell. However, it was normal for cultivators to not be able to tell one's age. What happens when the 10 arbiters surpass their age? Lu Yin asked. Lan Si put down the jug of wine. What do you think? Lu Yin shook his head. I'm not sure. Lan Si thought about it. Let's see if anyone can replace them. He then looked at Lu Yin. You're in an awkward position right now. Lu Yin had thought of that as well. His strength was enough to replace Xing Kai and Shimmer. If someone wanted to use the excuse of surpassing their age to push them down, then he would definitely be the one to blame. Lu Yin did not have much of an impression of Xing Kai, but he was a little apprehensive about Shimmer. This person had actually been able to face Zi of the Daoist Three Skies head-on. His domain was so powerful that it made one's hair stand on end. He could also predict attacks, and fighting against him would be very disgusting. Lan Si gazed at the distant astral river. It was as if he was speaking to himself but also to Lu Yin. The 10 arbiters. 10 extraordinary people. None of them can be underestimated. Lu Yin's heart skipped a beat. Have you ever fought against any of the 10 arbiters? Lan Si thought about it and then nodded. Yes. Lu Yin's eyes lit up. Who? What was the result? Lan Si sank into his memories and his brows unconsciously furrowed. When Xianxia. And the result? He picked up the jug of wine and downed it in large gulps. I lost. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. How did you lose? Lan Si looked at Lu Yin. If you face Wen Xianxia one day, you'll understand what it means to be helpless. Even if he just stands there and doesn't make a move, you can forget about winning. Lu Yin did not understand. He can't be attacked? Lan Si shook his head. That's coquettish, but Wen Xianxia is even more disgusting. You'll understand when you meet him. I can't say that I lost against him, but I couldn't win. Do you know coquettish? Lu Yin asked, his gaze turning cold. Lan Si shook his head. Not really. That person seems casual, but his murderous intent is too strong. The two chatted for a long time and Lan Si's injuries recovered slightly. He was barely able to stand up. You and I agreed on a battle and I lost. According to the terms of the bet, the Lan family will support you unconditionally from now on, Lan Si said solemnly to Lu Yin. Lu Yin was excited. The Lan family was a relatively powerful force and Lan Si was one of the 10 arbiters. This meant that even before Lu Yin had become one of the 10 arbiters, he could already control them. Lu Yin stood up, and his left arm gradually regained feeling as his injuries healed. Outside of Peking, many people gradually dispersed. The Great Eastern Alliance had taken over the area, and no filming was allowed. Lu Yin extended a hand and handed it to Lan Si. Lan Si smiled wryly and grabbed Lu Yin's hand to stand up. At this moment, Elder Iron and the rest came over at Lu Yin's signal. Lan Baobao glared at Lu Yin before looking at Lan Si with concern. Young master, how are your injuries? Let's treat them first, Elder Iron said. Lan Si waved a hand. They're fine. Elder Iron was still worried, so he found a cultivator with a healing innate gift to treat Lan Si. Lan Si said, from today onwards the entire Great Mountain Dojo will join the Great Yu Empire and support Lu Yin unconditionally. Elder Iron and the rest fell silent as they knew that this was a gamble. Actually, they had never thought that they would lose. Just like Lan Si, they had believed that they would definitely win this battle. This was what most people in the universe had thought as well, but they had still lost in the end. They had lost so suddenly that they could not accept it. Lan Baobao glared at Lu Yin. Did you play some dirty tricks? Baobao, shut up, Lan Si growled. Lan Baobao was displeased. How could I have won if I hadn't? You're one of the 10 arbiters. Lu Yin smiled and did not bicker with her. Everyone pack up. Actually, living on Xenu Star isn't a bad idea. I'll make arrangements for everyone. Elder Iron and the rest looked at Lan Si. Lan Si nodded. Lu Yin was excited. With these people from the Great Mountain Dojo joining, Xenu Star's safety would be guaranteed. Elder Iron's power level was over 300,000, so he would be safe. In the distance, the various experts bowed to Lu Yin and then slowly left. Lu Yin was also grateful to the old woman and the rest. Lu Yin was aware of his own position. Although he was the commander of the Outerverse Allied Forces and the Great Eastern Alliance's Alliance Master, he still needed the support of others. These people had already given him enough face just now, and they were all experts. Even if they left the Great Eastern Alliance, it would not be a problem. After the battle ended, Lu Yin opened his gadget and received countless messages congratulating him on his victory over Lan Si. Peking Planet had completely disappeared from the universe after this battle, but its name would forever remain in the annals of history. Wendy Yushan walked over and looked at Lu Yin with concern. Lu Yin looked past her and saw the energy of the astral river in the distance. It was overflowing at an unprecedented speed, and the energy had turned into a gaseous state, forming a rare cloud that covered the entire universe. It was gushing towards them. Everyone looked at the astral river as if they had guessed something. Lu Yin's eyes widened as he felt the star energy sweep towards him. He activated his serious art and directly absorbed the energy, forming a vortex around his body. All of the cultivators subconsciously absorbed the star energy. Gradually, the cloud of star energy passed through, and in the distance, the astral river's energy that had blocked the innerverse and outerverse disappeared. Lu Yin had guessed that this day would come, but he had not expected it to be so soon. The innerverse and outerverse had been separated for 80 months, which was a total of 6.5 years. Finally, the connection was restored. The energy overflowed, and all sorts of strange fish that had once swum through the astral river's energy fell back into it. It was a spectacular sight, and some of the strange fish's rune lines shocked Lu Yin. Fortunately, these fish had not swum out of the astral river, or else the entire universe would have been plunged into misery and suffering. Countless cultivators rushed towards the edge of the astral river. Elder Iron and the rest had complicated expressions. The astral river had been restored and they could return to the Starfall Sea. However, they did not know how the Greyweed continent was doing or how Zhou Xian dojo was doing. "I might have to withdraw from the 10 arbiters," Lan Si suddenly said, shocking everyone around him. Lan Baobao was sad as the 10 arbiters were synonymous with invincibility. It would be difficult for a defeated Divine Fist to continue as one of the 10 arbiters, even though his strength was still sufficient. "Young Master, the 10 arbiters' positions are conferred by the Hall of Honor. Even if Elder Iron paused for a moment before continuing. "Even if Alliance leader Lu defeated you, he could not immediately become one of the 10 arbiters." Lan Si shook his head. "It has nothing to do with this battle. The influence behind me is gone." Elder Iron and the rest had sorrowful expressions and they all fell silent. Lu Yin understood that the 10 arbiters did not just represent 10 extremely powerful youths, but also the power behind them. Lan Si represented the Starfall Sea and the Greyweed continent. The Greyweed continent had 72 dojos and there were dozens of enlighters. There were also envoys like Lan Daolord and Tian Yanzi. Furthermore, the continent's geographical location was special, which allowed Lan Si to become one of the 10 arbiters with great decisiveness. Otherwise, how could he command the younger generation with just his power level? No matter how powerful Lan Si was, he was still a youth, and any of the innerverse powers could easily find a powerful elder to destroy him. If one wanted to become one of the 10 arbiters with great decisiveness, they would need the support of a powerful force. Chapter 1045. Now that Zhongshan Dojo had been destroyed as well as the Boundless Continent's 72 dojos, there was no one to support Lan Si. Even if he retained his position as one of the 10 arbiters, he did not have the right to speak. Rather than staying behind and being humiliated, it was better for him to withdraw. Elder Iron and the others were unwilling to accept this outcome. They had been defeated by Lu Yin and had withdrawn from the 10 arbiters. Coupled with the calamity that had befallen the Boundless Continent, their lives had been plunged into darkness. "I might have a way to help you," Lu Yin said. Lan Si was astonished. "You want me to retain my position as one of the 10 arbiters and support you?" Lu Yin nodded, as this was one of the reasons why he did not want to replace Lan Si. Lan Si was a straightforward and upright person, and he had helped Lu Yin unconditionally. It would be a pity if he did not become one of the 10 arbiters. "How?" Lan Si asked. Lu Yin replied, "If the Sea King's dome supports you, it should not be much less than the Boundless Continent's support." Lan Si thought about it. Although we don't know if the Sea King is still alive, the Sea King's dome's influence in the Starfall Sea is too great. There's also Elder He, an envoy-level powerhouse, and they also have influence in the Hall of Honor. That should be enough. Lu Yin nodded as he planned to head back and investigate the reactions of those from the Sea King's dome. The moment that the innerverse and outerverse regained their connection, they should be able to detect whether the Sea King was dead or not. If the Sea King was still alive, then the Sea King's dome would continue to maintain its influence. Otherwise, even if it still had some influence, it would still be bullied by the various great powers of the innerverse. In the Innerverse, in the Day-Night clan, Night King Zhenwu stood at the edge of a cliff and opened his gadget to contact someone. After a while, a low voice came from the gadget. The Hall of Honor is unable to judge Lu Yin for the time being. Night King Zhenwu frowned. Why? This person is a traitor of the Fifth Mainland. Lu Yin is a disciple of the Hall of Honor and Master Yuan can vouch for him. He is not a traitor of the Fifth Mainland. Night King Zhenwu, please be careful with your words. Night King Zhenwu was shocked. What? He's a disciple of the Hall? That's impossible. He is a disciple of the Hall of Honor and at the same time he has the qualifications to compete for the Star Tower inheritance. Night King Zhenwu, without concrete evidence, you cannot use the Day-Night clan's influence to declare Lu Yin as a traitor. Or else the Hall's reputations as. Night King Zhenwu, He had never thought that Lu Yin would have such an important identity. Back then he had only killed Lu Yin and accused him of being a traitor to the Hall of Honor in order to prove the Day-Night clan's authority. He hadn't paid much attention to this matter. Now that Lu Yin was alive and had even defeated Lance, this matter had to be taken seriously. Even if Leon's Armada and the Astral Combat Academy tried to stop him, he had to do everything he could to eliminate Lu Yin. His heart would not be at ease if he did not eliminate this person. Lu Yin's victory over Arbiter Lance had shaken the entire universe. In the Day-Night clan's ancestral grounds, countless people stared at the top of the stone tablet in a daze. They stared at Lu Yin's image but no one knew what they were thinking. Hui Day-Night's eyes were calm, but there was a trace of hope and expectation hidden deep within them. Night Queen Yanqing opened her eyes and subconsciously looked towards the top of the stone tablet. She could no longer go any higher. She had not been the only one who had made great progress during the Sixth Mainland's invasion, but Chenglong Day-Night had also made great progress. It was almost impossible for her to surpass Chenglong Day-Night. There were only two people above Nightmare Dragon Day-Night, Lu Yin and Night King Zhenwu. No one in the Day-Night clan could surpass the three of them. She just did not know if Lu Yin could surpass her elder brother. Night Queen Yanqing shook her head when she thought of this as she was overthinking things. Even if Lu Yin had defeated Lance, it did not mean that he could defeat her elder brother. The Zhongshan dojo was not on the same level as the Day-Night clan. If not for the 72 dojos on the Kangmeng continent and their unique geographical location, Lance would not have been able to compare to her elder brother. Although they were all 10 arbiters, there were still differences in strength. How could her elder brother, who had the greatest foundation of the Day-Night clan, be compared to someone like Lan Si? Lu Yin was an outsider and it was already very impressive that he had reached this step. It was impossible for him to surpass her elder brother on the stone tablet. Night Queen Yanqing decided to rest for a while. Comprehending the inheritance was not easy and she felt a little dizzy. Suddenly, there was a cry of surprise as Night Queen Yanqing heard her own name. She surpassed him. Zhou Day-Night has surpassed Night King Xiong and is now second only to Night Queen Yanqing. She actually surpassed Night King Xiong. He's in trouble. Boss Xiong is not someone to be trifled with. Boss Xiong is right here. Night Queen Yanqing looked up at the ancestral land's stone tablet and saw that Night King Xiong, who had been second only to her, had now fallen to 6th place. The person who had surpassed him was Zhou Day-Night. She was astonished as she was well aware of Zhou Day-Night's innate gift. Reaching the top 10 of the ancestral land's stone tablet was already beyond her expectations, but now she had surpassed Night King Xiong. Night King Xiong was from the same generation as her elder brother Night King Zhenwu, and he was 1 generation older than her. He was already on the verge of breaking away from the younger generation, and his strength was about the same as Night King Gu's. Night King Xiong did not strive for fame or fortune, and he had never left the ancestral land. Even so, he was still ranked 37th on the top 100 rankings, which was quite high. She had only been able to surpass Night King Xiong because of the Sixth Mainland's invasion, but Zhou Day-Night had actually surpassed him. There was an angry roar and Night Queen Yanqing frowned as she looked into the distance. A tall and sturdy man was looking around before finally fixing his gaze on Zhou Day-Night. He walked over step by step. "Woman, let's exchange pointers." Zhou Day-Night opened her eyes and they flashed. Beneath the stone tablet, one of the ancient figures spoke up. "This is the ancestral land's inheritance. Do not be impudent." Night King Xiong bowed. Senior, this junior only wishes to help his fellow clan members consolidate their battle techniques. I dare not be impudent. Before the figure could speak, a voice rang out from afar. Stand down. Night King Xiong's expression changed and he immediately retreated without another word. The one who had shouted at him was Night King Jinwu. In the Day-Night clan, Night King Xiong was not afraid of the older generation as they were all from the same clan. The elders would not bicker with him, but Night King Jinwu was different. Anyone who offended him would suffer a fate worse than death. Zhou Day-Night's gaze was calm as she looked up at the top of the stone tablet at Lu Yin. Congratulations on defeating Lan Si. From this moment onward, you have officially stepped into the ranks of the top powerhouses in the universe. However, I hope that you will not underestimate Night King Jinwu. Even though she had not interacted with Lu Yin much, she understood him well enough to know that he would definitely take revenge for the general appointment platform. She had to endure it as much as possible. However, if they met again in the future, they might be enemies. By that time, she might have already married Night King Jinwu and become a puppet for him to flaunt. Zhou Day-Night slowly closed her eyes and continued down the inheritance corridor. In the distance, Night King Jinwu continued to stare at Zhou Day-Night. He had been displeased when he learned that Lu Yin was a member of the Glory Alliance, but when he saw Zhou Day-Night's gaze, his lips curled up inexplicably. In Night Queen Yanqing's eyes, Night King Xiong was just a clown. Even though he was powerful, that was all there was to it, and there was not much room for improvement. As for Zhou Day-Night, she did not place her in her eyes. Even though she did not understand why her brother valued this woman so much, it was impossible for her to surpass Zhou Day-Night. Just as she thought about this, she heard another cry of surprise. This time it was far louder than the previous one. Night Queen Yanqing looked up at the ancestral land's stone tablet, and her pupils shrank. Zhou Day-Night's name had surpassed hers, and she was now second only to Jianlong Day-Night. How is this possible? Night Queen Yanqing suddenly stood up and looked at Zhou Day-Night. She was not the only one, as many people looked over as well. After surpassing Night King Xiong, Zhou Day-Night entered the inheritance corridor once again. The battle technique that appeared before her was Night's End, Daybreak. All of the Day-Night clan's battle techniques could be found in the inheritance corridor, but very few people were able to obtain them, and even fewer people were able to cultivate them after obtaining them. Zhou Day-Night had originally comprehended Night's End, Daybreak because of her Day-King bloodline and the life-or-death situation she had been in. Now that she had been in the inheritance corridor for so long, it was normal for Night's End, Daybreak to appear. Night's End, Daybreak was one of the Day-Night clan's strongest battle techniques, and it was a battle technique that had been created in the same era as the Night King Heaven-Splitting technique. The moment this battle technique appeared, Zhou Day-Night surpassed Night Queen Yanqing. Not only that, but Zhou Day-Night had also cultivated Night's End, Daybreak for more than 6 years, so she already had some understanding of this battle technique. Furthermore, she had comprehended it when she had been reincarnated, so her understanding of this battle technique was not shallow. In just a few minutes she had surpassed Jianlong Day-Night and become in existence second only to Night King Jinwu and Lu Yin. She had surpassed 3 people in a row, which was not just shocking but also at the very top. All of the Day-Night clan members stared at Zhou Day-Night with sparkling eyes, as they wanted to know what battle technique she had inherited. Even the ancient figures below the stone tablet opened their eyes. One of them had a complicated look in his eyes, and he had the same expectation as Zhou Day-Night. Lu Yin had been able to reach such a high position on the stone tablet because he had gone deep into the inheritance corridor and had almost reached the end. It was not because he had a deep understanding of the battle technique. The only battle technique that was suitable for him was Nightfall, but it was only comparable to the Day-Night Restoration technique. It could not be compared to Night's End, Daybreak or the Night King Heaven-Splitting technique. One day later, Zhou Day-Night displayed her 6 years of understanding of Night's End, Daybreak, which allowed her to surpass Lu Yin and become in existence second only to Night King Jinwu. Everyone was shocked as Zhou Day-Night had created history by surpassing 4 people in a single day. Many people stared at Zhou Day-Night, and the descendants of the Day-King clan were especially eager. Even though they knew that it was impossible, they still hoped that Zhou Day-Night would surpass Night King Jinwu and truly create history. Ever since the Day-King had died, no descendant of the Day-King had ever taken first place on the stone tablet. They all hoped that Zhou Day-Night could do it. However, reality disappointed them. Zhuo Night opened her eyes as she did not need to continue comprehending. Someone could not help but say, Zhuo Night, continue comprehending. You can create history. This person's words caused the Night King clan members to be displeased, but they also represented the wishes of the Day King clan members. Zhuo Night calmly stood up and left. Surpass history? How could that be possible? They did not understand how terrifying Night King Zhenwu was. The Night King heaven-splitting technique was not inferior to Night's End, Daybreak, and she did not believe that Night King Zhenwu would be inferior to her in terms of comprehension of an exceptional battle technique. The more one understood, the more despair one would feel. This was Zhuo Night's realization. If she had not watched that battle, she would have done her best to comprehend it and think of a way to surpass Night King Zhenwu. At least she would still have a glimmer of hope. However, it was also good that she had watched that battle. Otherwise, the more desperate she was, the more laughable she would seem to Night King Zhenwu. She slowly walked towards Night King Zhenwu. Not long after, she stood in front of Night King Zhenwu with an indifferent expression. I did it. Chapter 1046. Night King Zhenwu smiled at Zhuo Night. Congratulations. Zhuo Night's emotionless gaze met Night King Zhenwu's. Night King Zhenwu replied, Don't worry, I'll remove the Day King bloodline's cage technique in 2 months. Zhuo Night sighed in relief and her pale fingers gradually relaxed. Night King Zhenwu watched her leave and then opened his gadget to make a call. On the other side, Lu Yin had yet to return to Xenu Star. The inner verse and outer verse had been reconnected, but that did not mean that they could communicate. When the inner verse and outer verse had been separated by energy, the Astral River Arc had been overturned and cut in half. Lu Yin wanted to take a look at the Astral River Arc and see if it could be restored. Controlling the Astral River Arc was very important to him. According to Lily Rose, the Innerverse backup Astral River Arc was hidden in the blazing mist flow zone, so he wanted to take a look at it from the edge of the Astral River. Lan Si had already left Xenu Star under the escort of Elder Iron and the others. Lu Yin was gazing at the bottomless Astral River when his gadget rang. He glanced at it and his eyes trembled. It was Night King Zhenwu. A screen appeared in outer space and Night King Zhenwu's image appeared on it with a smile on his face. Congratulations on defeating Lan Si. You're now on par with the 10 Arbiters. Lu Yin had expected Night King Zhenwu to contact him, as the Day-Night clan's inheritance stone was in his hands. Are you saying this to show off your superiority? Lu Yin asked indifferently. Night King Zhenwu smiled. You can interpret it that way, but even if you become one of the 10 Arbiters, there's still a gap between us. I forgot to tell you that I'm now the head of the 10 Arbiters. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Literally. The contest for the Neoverse Star Tower is not that simple, and no one knows how many experts will appear. When the 6th mainland invaded, the Neoverse experts that appeared might just be probing the Innerverse depths. Thus, the 10 Arbiters need to work together and I'm the current head of the 10 Arbiters. Night King Zhenwu was proud and he still looked at Lu Yin with contempt. Whether it was in terms of strength or attitude, Night King Zhenwu had to look down on this person. Lu Yin's confidence. A battle between experts was not only a battle but also a battle mentality. Night King Zhenwu wanted to establish himself as an invincible in Lu Yin's heart. If Lu Yin lost to Lan Si, then everything would be fine and he wouldn't have to worry about it. But if he won, then he would be able to experience the terrifying power of the 10 Arbiters through Lan Si, and his invincible image as the head of the 10 Arbiters would become even more glorious. No matter how strong a person was, even if they could surpass a god, their mentality would still be weaker when facing a god. Lu Yin had never thought that Night King Zhenwu would become the leader of the 10 Arbiters. None of the 10 Arbiters were simple, and they had been able to fight against Ziyi without even seeing the light of day. When Sanxi's strength was unfathomable, the Spirit Palace's aura was magnificent, and Lu Tianmu was even more invincible. Lu Yin did not believe that these people would submit to Night King Zhenwu. However, Night King Zhenwu obviously would not lie about something like this, and Lu Yin was able to find out the truth with a single investigation. What, you don't believe me? Night King Zhenwu's lips curled up as he looked at Lu Yin with disdain. Lu Yin muttered to himself for a moment before looking up. Since you're the leader of the 10 Arbiters, doesn't that mean that if I defeat you I'll be the leader of the 10 Arbiters? Night King Zhenwu's face turned gloomy, as he had not expected Lu Yin to think in such a manner. He had wanted to use this to break Lu Yin's mental state, but this person was not so easy to deal with. Night King Zhenwu's tone was icy. Defeat me? Do you think that I'm trash like Lan Si? Lu Yin raised an eyebrow. Trash? He really did not think so. The fact that Lan Si had been able to persevere under the nightfall without being defeated proved that his spiritual force was not weak. Even if he could not contend against Night King Zhenwu, he could still hold on. Night King Zhenwu's physical strength might not be able to withstand Lan Si's empty palm. However, Night King Zhenwu's most difficult technique to deal with was the Heart Arrow secret technique. It was impossible to guard against, and once one was struck by it, they would definitely lose. There were too many factors that could affect a battle, and Night King Zhenwu did not think highly of Lan Si. Lu Yin did not say anything about it, as he would just let Night King Zhenwu continue to be arrogant. You didn't come here just to tell me this, right? Lu Yin asked. Night King Zhenwu's face turned gloomy, and he displayed the image of the distant Day-Night clan's ancestral land's stone tablet on his screen. Do you see the stone tablet? Your image is ranked 3rd. Lu Yin looked over, and sure enough, his image was ranked below Night King Zhenwu and Zhou Day-Night. This was the proof that Night King Yuanjing had mentioned. Only those who had comprehended battle techniques after entering the inheritance corridor would have their images appear on the Day-Night clan's ancestral land's stone tablet. Lu Yin had been exposed the moment he had entered the inheritance corridor. You're not curious as to why Zhou Day-Night surpassed you because you know that she comprehended Night's End, daybreak, Night King Zhenwu said. Lu Yin looked at him quietly, and a strong sense of unease welled up in his heart. Night's End, daybreak was the Daiking's ultimate battle technique, and Zhou Day-Night's comprehension of Night's End, daybreak was the hope of the Daiking bloodline's rise. Night King Zhenwu was the hope of the Daiking bloodline, and the two were mortal enemies. Night King Zhenwu looked at the ancestral land's stone tablet. I promised Zhou Day-Night that as long as she worked hard to climb up, her position on the stone tablet would be second only to mine. Then I would give her a chance to help the Daiking bloodline regain their freedom, and she grasped that chance. Do you know what it means for her to climb up? Night King Zhenwu looked at Lu Yin and arrogantly said, Become my Night King Zhenwu's wife. Lu Yin's face changed, and his face gradually turned green. He clenched his fists, and a towering rage spread throughout his body. He was well aware of how much Zhou Day-Night hated Night King Zhenwu, but now she had to work hard to climb up to him, and her goal was to become his wife. To Zhou Day-Night, this was extremely pitiful, as if she could not see any hope in life. It was worse than death. Very angry? Very angry? Ah. Night King Zhenwu laughed heartily, his heart filled with hatred. Lu Yin's gaze turned cold. Is this what you want? Night King Zhenwu grinned. His gaze was cruel. What I want? Wrong. She's just a slave, a piece of trash from the Daiking bloodline. Does she really think that she can become my wife? The key to seizing Night's End, daybreak, is to cause a cultivator's mind to collapse and suffer a huge blow. I'll give Zhou Day-Night hope, and then I'll personally destroy that hope. This is what I want, and the time will be 2 months from now. 2 months from now, on the day that I promise to remove the Daiking bloodline's sealed cage technique, I'll push her into the abyss. Not just her, but her family, her parents, and everyone she knows will all be pushed into the abyss. Lu Yin's scalp went numb, and he stared at Night King Zhenwu in disbelief. How could someone be so evil? 7th bro, kill him. You have to kill him. The ghost monkey shouted. He was so angry that he could not hold it in anymore. I've never met such a person since I was born. This person is too evil and too shameless. He actually used such a method to deal with a woman. How hateful. Lu Yin lowered his head and did not speak. Night King Zhenwu was still laughing wantonly. Lu Yin, I gave you a chance to follow me. When I became one of the 5 children of the stars, your glory would illuminate the universe, but you refused. Do you really think that you can resist my Day-Night clan just because you've unified the Outerverse? Do you really think that you have the right to speak? Let me tell you, you can't do it. I want you to know that you can't even save a woman. This woman exposed Night's End, daybreak for you, and pushed her entire family into the abyss. This is all because of you. I want you to watch her fall into despair, and I want you to spend the rest of your life in regret. Night King Zhenwu's words echoed in Lu Yin's ears, and he saw Zhou Day-Night's sorrowful and despairing expression. Her eyes were filled with confusion and pain as she faced the future. This was all because of Lu Yin. If not for him, Zhou Day Night would not have exposed Night's End Daybreak, and she would not have become Night King Zhenwu's puppet. Her entire family would not have been ruined. Seventh bro, don't think too much. This has nothing to do with you. You've saved Zhou Day Night many times and you only went to planet Pyrolite because of her. You also delayed your escape because of her, which led to you being blocked by Night King Zhenwu. You don't owe her anything. The ghost monkey shouted, afraid that Lu Yin would overthink things. Cultivators valued their mental state, and if a person's mental state was disturbed, then their entire being would be in chaos as well. This was Night King Zhenwu's goal. He wanted to disturb Lu Yin's mental state and brand his invincible image deep into Lu Yin's mind. He also wanted to lure Lu Yin to the day-night flow zone and completely eliminate this hidden danger. Lu Yin had truly made Night King Zhenwu feel threatened. Lu Yin had been able to defeat one of the 10 arbiters even though he had only been cultivating for less than 12 years. How terrifying was that? To deal with Lu Yin, Night King Zhenwu had deliberately set the meeting to 2 months later, as Lu Yin had to be dealt with before he left for the Neoverse. Night King Zhenwu had never paid such a huge price to deal with someone before, and he had even revealed his most important plan. However, it did not matter, as Zhou Day Night would not be able to see anyone for the next 2 months, and no one would be able to contact her either. No one would be able to stop Night King Zhenwu's plan. Beside the astral river, Lu Yin lowered his head, deep in thought. The ghost monkey continued to shout, "Seventh bro, you don't owe Zhou Day Night anything. Don't think too much about it. Wait until you're stronger before dealing with Night King Zhenwu. This guy must die." Lu Yin relaxed his tightly clenched fists, as he did not know when the call from his gadget had ended. He looked up at the astral river and then at the opposite shore. His gaze seemed to traverse an endless distance as he saw Night King Zhenwu and locked eyes with him. "You don't owe her anything?" "Wrong, I owe her a promise. I promised her that I would help her unlock at least once, no matter when. This promise must be repaid," Lu Yin said in a low voice. The ghost monkey was puzzled. Lu Yin calmly left as there was no point in being angry. Night King Zhenwu was someone he had to kill. This person's thoughts were too dark, so dark that it was terrifying. Zhou Day Night had fallen into the beautiful dream that Night King Zhenwu had created. The more realistic and beautiful the dream was, the greater the despair it brought. Lu Yin did not dare to imagine how Zhou Day Night would react when Night King Zhenwu revealed everything. Normal people would not be able to handle it. 2 months. He had to hurry. Just as Lu Yin returned to Xinyu Star, Xianxia and the rest hurried over. "Your Highness, the Blaze Realm, Ross Empire, Void Dragon Clan, Xinjia Dire Barbarian Clan, Day Night Clan, and various other great powers of the Innerverse have announced to the Outerverse that Your Highness is a traitor of the Fifth Mainland. Anyone who has even the slightest connection with you will become an enemy of the Innerverse's great powers. Currently, the Outerverse's various weaves are panicking, and the remaining powers that wanted to join the Great Eastern Alliance have all retreated." Lu Yin calmly replied, "Announce that the Innerverse has been invaded by the Sixth Mainland and has suffered heavy losses. The Sixth Mainland will pillage the Outerverse to replenish its resources, and the Great Eastern Alliance's allied forces will expand in order to defend against external enemies." Xianxia and the rest were shocked. "Your Highness, is this true?" Lu Yin calmly replied, "That's not important. What's important is that people believe me. You guys can handle this." Chapter 1047. The Day-Night clan was vainly trying to smear Lu Yin's reputation, but Lu Yin had long since anticipated this move. As long as the Hall of Honor did not make an announcement to the entire universe, then everything that was done against him would be nothing more than slander. The Outerverse media was under Lu Yin's control, and he was also the commander of the Outerverse allied forces, so he was not afraid of such slander. Those powers wanted to withdraw from the Great Eastern Alliance mainly because they were afraid of offending the various great powers of the Innerverse. Now that Lu Yin had categorized the Innerverse's great powers as looters, that meant that they were his enemies. Thus, it was only natural that he would be able to break through their plans to target him, and he would even be able to expand the allied army. The main purpose of the expansion of the alliance was to increase their momentum. Any random great power in the Innerverse was enough to sweep through the Outerverse, and the outerverse lacked absolute experts. Even if there were any, they were from the innerverse. The outerverse alone would not be able to stop a colossus like the Day-Night clan, but once the momentum was created, then it would no longer be a conflict between the innerverse and the outerverse. Instead, it would implicate the Hall of Honor, and with the Hall of Honor's interference, Lu Yin did not believe that the innerverse would dare to make a move against the outerverse. Lu Yin had never thought that the power of the outerverse could resist the power of the innerverse, but unifying the outerverse would allow him to advance and retreat freely. His influence within the Hall of Honor would also skyrocket, which was the most important thing. Alright, there were also all kinds of resources. If Lu Yin hadn't unified the outerverse, where would the 3,000 androids have come from? And the benefits of unifying the outerverse had only just begun to show. The most troublesome part was that the outerverse had been weak for too many years. The moment the outerverse encountered a strong army from the innerverse, there was a chance that some of the outerverse forces would turn against the outerverse in an instant, and the resulting chain reaction would be very bad. He really wanted to know where the blazing mist flow zone's backup astral river arc would appear. With this thought in mind, he swept his domain and found Lily Rose. Lily Rose could sense Lu Yin's domain, and she reluctantly went to King Zishan's palace. In the past, she had been interested in Lu Yin. She liked powerful men like him, but she didn't dare to do so now. There were some people she could get close to, but there were others she couldn't. Lu Yin was the type of person who could not be approached. He stood too high, and he was now one of the 10 arbiters. May I know why Alliance Master Lu is looking for me? Lily Rose tried her best to appear calm and collected in front of Lu Yin. Lu Yin replied, I want you to think of a way to find out where the backup astral river arc is. Lily Rose was helpless. Alliance Lord Lu, I'm willing to help you if I can, but I really don't know. The astral river arc doesn't belong to the Blaze Realm, but to the Hall of Honor. But the Blaze Realm has the right to use it, especially since the astral river arc was damaged, Lu Yin said. Lily Rose was distressed. If you help me, I can help you as well. It's not impossible for you to become the Blaze Realm's master. You should know that I'm capable of that. The Crimson Alliance was shocked. The master of the Blaze Realm? Lu Yin looked at her. Didn't your mother do that because that person is the Blaze Realm's master? At the mention of this, her face immediately darkened and she quietly pondered. I know you don't believe me, but I can unify the outerverse in a little more than 6 years. A mere Blaze Realm isn't that difficult to deal with. My understanding of the Blaze Realm isn't any less than yours. He then clapped his hands, causing smoke to curl around the living room to form words. Old Smoker sends his regards. Lily Rose was shocked. An old smoker? Lu Yin waved a hand and the smoke dissipated. Lily Rose looked at Lu Yin bewildered. You're the old smoker who assassinated the Blaze Realm's master and escaped unscathed? He's now the captain of the Great Yu Empire's 2nd Imperial Squadron. Lily Rose was stunned. Everyone in the Blaze Realm remembered the old smoker. That assassination had shaken the entire universe. The 8 Great Flow Zones represented the greatest powers in the innerverse. Although the Blazing Mist Flow Zone was the weakest and bordered the outerverse, and the Blaze Realm only occupied a third of the Blazing Mist Flow Zone, it was still one of the 8 Great Flow Zones. Countless years had passed, and no one had ever heard of an assassin who could assassinate the leader of one of the 8 Great Flow Zones at close range and escape unscathed. The old smoker had relied on that assassination to become the outerverse's strongest assassin, and no one had been able to shake his position. No one knew how the old smoker had done it, but the fact that he had been able to escape unscathed from the Blaze Realm proved that he had a deep understanding of the Blaze Realm. Lu Yin's words were not without reason. Lily Rose was moved. If she could sit in that position, she would not hesitate to pay any price. Lu Yin quietly sipped his tea. Although he could force Lily Rose to help him, it would be useless if he did not obtain her sincere help. After a while, Lily Rose spoke up. Alliance Master Lu, I truly have no way of knowing where the backup astral river arc is. You should know my status in the Blaze Realm. On the surface, I'm a top disciple, but I'm rarely acknowledged by the Blaze Realm. Most people in the Blaze Realm dislike me. Lu Yin did not speak and only listened quietly. Lily Rose glanced at him and then continued, However, I know some people who might be able to help you. She then gave him a contact number. Lu Yin watched Lily Rose leave and then looked at the contact number that she had given him. Not long after, a screen appeared in front of Lu Yin and a man appeared on it. Who are you? The man looked very young, but he had a weathered expression as if he had experienced many things. He stared at Lu Yin as if trying to discern something from his eyes. Lu Yin frowned as this person looked very familiar. Who are you? The man stared at Lu Yin with a sharp gaze, but there was also a hint of apprehension and unease. How did you contact me if you don't know me? Lu Yin replied, Lily Rose gave it to me. The man's expression changed slightly, and at that moment, a middle-aged man walked out from behind him and looked at Lu Yin through the screen. The moment he saw Lu Yin, his expression changed and he immediately disconnected the call. Lu Yin put down his gadget and had Zhao Ran bring him a special drink. He then waited quietly. On the other end, the youth was confused. Uncle Meng, what's wrong? The middle-aged man called Uncle Meng had a serious expression as he looked at the youth. How did you get in touch with this person? The youth's face paled and he nervously replied, he contacted me through Lily Rose. Uncle Meng's expression was solemn and no one knew what he was thinking. The youth was uneasy. He had lived like a rat on the street for so many years, living in fear every day. Now even a simple call was like this. Had Lily Rose betrayed them? The more he thought about it, the more terrified he became. After a while, Uncle Meng solemnly asked, Paige, do you know who that person is? Paige shook his head. He looks familiar. Uncle Meng sighed. We didn't let you contact the outside world for so many years. Even during the 6th Mainland's invasion you were hidden away so you don't even recognize this person. He paused for a moment before continuing, remember he's called Lu Yin. He's one of the top powerhouses of the universe's younger generation, and he just defeated the 10 Arbiters. Paige was shocked. Defeated the 10 Arbiters? Uncle Meng nodded. Do you know what it means to defeat the 10 Arbiters? Paige's face paled. Yes. Although he had not interacted with the outside world, his few experiences and some common sense told him that the 10 Arbiters were invincible and could not be defied. Even Lily Rose, who he worshipped, was like an ant in front of the 10 Arbiters. The most direct example was their greatest enemy, the Blaze Realm. The 10 Arbiters did not exist, and from what he knew, the Blaze Realm was the most terrifying power in the universe, but they still did not have the 10 Arbiters. Had that person just defeated the 10 Arbiters? Paige could not imagine it. Uncle Meng, what should we do? Paige was puzzled. Although he pretended to be calm, his eyes were filled with apprehension, confusion about the future. Uncle Meng looked at Paige's expression and sighed. They had sacrificed many people to protect this child and had even hidden him away. They had not even allowed him to come into contact with the internet. Now they had raised him to be a cripple without any opinions of his own. Contact him. Lily Rose will not betray us. Since she asked him to contact you, there must be a reason. Paige gulped and slowly raised his gadget. He carefully dialed the number that he had just received. He was very apprehensive as he was about to face the most powerful person in the universe. He did not know how to behave. Lu Yin waited for a while before his gadget rang. Paige's image appeared on the screen. Hello, I'm Paige. Lu Yin looked at him. Have we met somewhere before? Paige was confused and did not know how to answer. Uncle Meng answered, Mr. Lu, I've heard a lot about you. My surname is Meng and I'm from the Tinder Alliance. The Tinder Alliance? Lu Yin had never heard of it. What's your relationship with Lily Rose? Lu Yin asked. Uncle Meng replied, we're partners. We have a common enemy, the Blaze Realm. The Tinder Alliance is named after the Tinder Alliance. Lu Yin smiled. What a coincidence. The Blaze Realm is also my enemy. Uncle Meng relaxed. He had heard of Lu Yin's relationship with the Blaze Realm, or else he would not have dared to contact Lu Yin. May I know what instructions Mr. Lu has for us? I wouldn't dare to give you instructions. I asked Lily Rose a question but she didn't know, so she sent me to find you. Uncle Meng was confused. What question? Lu Yin asked, where's the backup Astral River Arc? Uncle Meng was shocked but he quickly figured it out. Although they had been hunted down by the Blaze Realm, they had survived for so many years, so they naturally had their own methods of survival. They also knew that Lu Yin had unified the Outerverse. Since he had unified the Outerverse, he would face pressure from the Innerverse. If the Innerverse's various powers wanted to cross the Astral River, the best method was naturally to use the Astral River Arkansas. In other words, whoever controlled the Astral River Arc would have the initiative. I won't hide it from you, Mr. Lu. We can track down the Astral River Arc's location, and we've even received news that it will appear from a certain location and take a group of people to the Outerverse. Lu Yin nodded. You can state your conditions now. Page gulped again and continued to stare at Lu Yin. He did not understand how this person had reached his current position. Uncle Meng had wanted to exaggerate his conditions, as this person had unified the Outerverse, controlled many resources, and controlled the entire Outerverse alliance. But suddenly he met Lu Yin's eyes, and he felt an inexplicable chill as he recalled some of Lu Yin's past experiences. Chapter 1048. Lu Yin's enemies weren't just the Blaze Realm, but also the Day-Night clan. His reputation had been built on the Day-Night clan, and now the Day-Night clan, Blazing Mist Flow Zone, and many other places were slandering him as a traitor of the Fifth Mainland. Lu Yin was someone that even the Blaze Realm and the Day-Night clan feared. Could Lu Yin really ask for too much? Uncle Meng hesitated for a while before finally saying, "It's our alliance's honor to be able to help Mr. Lu, so there's no need to talk about conditions. Rest assured, Mr. Lu, the alliance will do everything in our power to help Mr. Lu find the Astral River Arc's location." Page was shocked. Uncle Meng was such a generous person? Lu Yin was astonished, but then he laughed and nodded. Then many thanks. I'll remember your help and I'll repay you generously in the future. Uncle Meng smiled. Mr. Lu, you're too polite. If you have any requests, just contact Page directly. The alliance will do our best. Lu Yin smiled and exchanged a few polite words before ending the call. Seventh bro, this guy is smart. If he dared to raise conditions with you, then it would have been a one-off deal. No one owes anyone anything, but now you owe them a favor, Ghost Monkey said. Lu Yin smiled. I don't owe them anything. What do you mean? They helped you unconditionally and you don't owe them anything? Seventh bro, I've noticed that you've changed. You've become more thick-skinned, Ghost Monkey mocked. Lu Yin smiled. Monkey, do you remember the first time we encountered a corpse king? Ghost Monkey thought about it. Remember. We were chased by a hunter into the Lost Heavens, and then we crashed into a spacecraft that had been attacked by a corpse king. What happened? At that time there was a corpse king, a heavily injured woman, and a young man on that spacecraft. That young man was that Page from earlier, Lu Yin said. He had only recalled this after looking at Page for a while. He wouldn't find a person familiar for no reason, and there had to be a reason for that. Ghost Monkey was shocked. Are you sure? Lu Yin was certain. I'm absolutely sure. That's interesting. That means that you were the one who saved that person. Ghost Monkey laughed strangely. Lu Yin calmly replied, I remember that woman didn't die. If she's still alive, then they'll know who owes whom a favor. Seventh bro, these people are destined to be your vanguard against the Blaze Realm, the Ghost Monkey said. If he could successfully deal with the Day-Night clan, then his next target would be the Blaze Realm. However, just the Tinder Alliance alone would not be enough to deal with the Blaze Realm. He suddenly thought of someone. Yan Yan, one of the current captains of the 13 Imperial Squadrons. This person came from the Royal Frost Continent, which was located in the Blazing Mist Flow Zone. Ghost Monkey suddenly said, That's strange, seventh brother. Since the Tinder Alliance is the Blaze Realm's enemy, why would they be hunted down by the Neo-Human Alliance? Furthermore, it's a corpse king that can transform into a corpse king. Even within the Neo-Human Alliance, there aren't many of such existences. Not every corpse king was capable of using it. Only very important missions would send out a corpse king. Was it really necessary to send out such a powerful corpse king to kill Page? The Tinder Alliance might be hiding something. There were too many secrets in this universe. He didn't need to know all of them. He just needed to make sure that this group of people could help him deal with the Blaze Realm. Right now, the most important thing was for them to help him locate the Astral River Arkansas. The Innerverse would definitely not place the Astral River Arc in the same place as before, and they would definitely want to catch him off guard. Then let's see who would be the one to catch the other off guard. Not long after, the new universal armor that Lu Yin had been looking forward to was completed. He looked at the simple universal armor that had been fused with various precious materials, and he was quite satisfied. This was the best universal armor he had ever seen. Banjo was also very satisfied with the armor and proudly said, Your Highness, this universal armor was fused with more than 100 different materials. It was only possible to fuse them together through precise calculations so that their natures would not conflict with each other. Many of the materials came from the mechanical monsters that you gave me. Its defense is above that of a hunter, and Ban Jiu continued to brag after his introduction, but he was chased out by Lu Yin. If not for the dye's enhance, Lu Yin would not have been able to use this universal armor. Its defense could not compare to his physical body, and it was only useful after the dye's enhance. After chasing Ban Jiu away, Lu Yin entered the secret room and blocked off the ghost monkey before rolling his die. The first time he rolled enhance, he obtained a useless weapon. The second time he rolled enhance, but it was still useless. The third time, Lu Yin was left speechless when he discovered that he had actually rolled enhance. He sighed ruefully. It would be great if he could control the die in the future, but he had no confidence in playing it like this. Fortunately, he rolled 3 o'clock. He placed the universal armor on the die and began to frantically toss star essence into it. It was as if he was not afraid of spending money. He was indeed not afraid of spending money, as he had more than 20 million star essence on him, which made him a proper tycoon. If the materials were good enough, Lu Yin would have been worried that he would not have enough money. However, although the materials used in this universal armor were not bad, they were only good within Ban Jiu's capabilities. He had not thoroughly researched the materials that had been melted from the mechanical monsters. Even so, Lu Yin was still satisfied. 1 time. 2 times. 3 times. After the 7th time, Lu Yin saw that the universal armor could no longer be dropped. He sighed. It was over. He had upgraded it 7 times in total. As for the number of rune lines, Lu Yin smiled, as they were about the same as the giant's right arm. This meant that the armor's defense was close to that of an emissary's. Up until now, Lu Yin had upgraded 3 sets of universal armor. The first set had been enhanced by the precious metal he had obtained from Jiu, which had allowed it to withstand attacks with a power level of more than 400,000, which had helped Lu Yin withstand the bombardment from Wanqing City. The second set had been able to withstand attacks with a power level of around 260,000, and this third set was his best set. A set of universal armor that could withstand an attack from an emissary was probably only 1 or 2 people in the Outerverse who could break through its defenses. And those 2 people were on his side. He could do whatever he wanted in the Outerverse now. However, the amount of star essence he had consumed was huge, and it had exceeded 3 million star essence. If not for the additional 20 million star essence, he would not have been able to upgrade it. After putting on the universal armor, Lu Yin felt as if the entire universe belonged to him. Suddenly, his eyes trembled as he looked outside the 3 rings of the continent. An incomparably majestic number of rune lines had appeared there, and it was no less exaggerated than the fish screens. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. There should not be such a powerhouse outside Xenu Star, and this person had come without warning. Lu Yin decided to put on the universal armor and go out to take a look. But just as he was about to leave, someone arrived outside King Zishan's palace. It was Ku Wei. Lu Yin had completely forgotten about this person from the 7 Courts Ku family. What was he doing here? Lu Yin was in no hurry to leave. The powerhouse outside Xenu Star had hidden himself, and his rune lines had become similar to a normal cultivator's. Even if Lu Yin went out, he would not be able to find him. Since that person had not barged into Xenu Star, it meant that he had some misgivings, so there was no need to rush. Within the palace's garden, Lu Yin was drinking Zhao Ran's special drink when Ku Wei entered. He beamed when he saw Lu Yin. Congratulations, Your Highness. You defeated the 10 arbiters and became famous throughout the universe. Even the Neoverse has heard of you. Impressive, impressive. Lu Yin smiled at him. What are you doing here instead of training the newcomers in the 10th Imperial Squadron? Ku Wei moved closer, his eyes darting around. Your Highness, have you ever thought of going to the Neoverse to play? Lu Yin replied, I'm a member of the Hall of Honor, so I have the right to participate in the Star Tower contest. Let's go together. We can compete for the Star Tower, tour the Neoverse, and visit a couple of cemeteries. How pleasant, right? Ku Wei said expectantly, trying his best to put on a harmless expression. Lu Yin had a strange expression. Cemeteries? Are you talking about Progenitor Chen's tomb that your 7 courts are guarding? Ku Wei nodded. Let's go together. Just treat it as some fun. You can represent the Yu family and no one will make things difficult for you. Lu Yin knew that it was not the seven courts that had hunted down the Yu family, but rather the Neo-Human Alliance. The so-called seven courts had only allied together to resist the Hall of Honor for progenitor Chen's tomb. If he represented the Yu family, no one would make things difficult for him. He also knew brother Hui Kong. Although Hui Kong had not explicitly said that he was from the Hui family, that should be the case. Why would I go? Didn't the Yu family give you a spot to enter the tomb? Lu Yin asked. Ku Wei was embarrassed. Well, actually, they did give me a spot, but I can try my best to help you get a spot from the Ku family. If the two of us go together, then we won't have to be afraid of anyone else. Lu Yin was amused. You want me to help you get a spot from the Ku family and then give the Yu family spot to me so that I can help you deal with others in the tomb? Ku Wei nodded and helplessly said, all the heirs of the seven courts have their own secret techniques, and their battle prowess is extraordinary as well. Not just anyone can deal with them. Even if I have a spot from the Yu family, I'll be in trouble if I run into them. I need to find a helper. Can't the Ku family's heirs of this generation help you? Lu Yin was puzzled. Ku Wei grinned. It's fine as long as they don't steal mine. Help me snatch his spot and we'll go in together. We're on the same side. Lu Yin shook his head. We'll talk about it later. Ku Wei hurriedly said, don't do that, Your Highness. You don't even know what progenitor Chen's tomb represents. There are battle techniques, secret techniques, and even progenitor Chen's treasures. Any random item you obtain will allow you to become invincible in the universe. Then why didn't your seven courts defeat the Hall of Honor? Lu Yin countered. Ku Wei was speechless. We have it, but so do they. Do you think that the people from the Neoverse are like the people from the Innerverse and Outerverse? They all have their own secret techniques, just like some people from the Sixth Mainland. Once they use their secret techniques, no one can do anything about them. Your Highness, your secret techniques have saved your life countless times. Lu Yin had experienced this firsthand, as the people from the Sixth Mainland's secret progenitor realm were too disgusting. Once they used their secret techniques of resurrection, they could not be killed no matter what. They also had the secret subjugation technique, which allowed their strength to soar. They definitely had even more disgusting secret techniques. Chapter 1049. There are many powerful experts in the Neoverse. Why haven't I seen them in the Innerverse? Ku Wei rolled his eyes. Those guys are so cunning. They won't make a move until the very last moment, so it would be strange if I could see them. Lu Yin clenched his fists and grinned. We'll talk about your matters later. Right now I'm going out to steal something. Ku Wei blinked. Snatch things? What are you snatching? Lu Yin smiled strangely. The Dark Phoenix tribe sealed the continent with 16 layers of black flames for 100 years. I've already taken 15 and now I'm going to take the last layer as well. Ku Wei was shocked. That wicked. Lu Yin raised an eyebrow, his gaze unfriendly. Ku Wei hurriedly corrected himself and dryly laughed as he said, I was wrong. It's just that fun. It's too fun, huh? Lu Yin placed a hand on Ku Wei's shoulder. Since it's fun, let's go together. Ku Wei rolled his eyes. All right, I'll go with you, Your Highness. However, you have to come with me to progenitor Chen's tomb in the new universe. We'll talk about it later, Lu Yin replied. Isn't Your Highness curious about progenitor Chen's tomb? I heard that Ancestor Chen wrote a love poem to a woman, but I don't know if it's true. Of course it's fake. It's just a rumor. That's not necessarily the case. He speaks in a methodical manner, but he doesn't know how to read. You don't even know the words, but you know it's a love poem? It's that kind of charm. You can tell at a glance. Not necessarily. It might be a peerless battle skill. Ku Wei fell silent for a moment before he earnestly said, Your Highness, you have to come with me. Let's copy down all the words that we don't recognize. There's bound to be someone who will recognize them. Your Highness, I beg of you. Lu Yin was speechless. Seventh bro, let's go. A tomb? It sounds like it's worth exploring, and it's progenitor Chen's tomb. Just think of it as training in front of progenitor Wuxiang's tomb, urged the ghost monkey. Lu Yin felt that he had said too much. The collapsible spacecraft was just right for the two of them, but Ku Wei insisted on taking a luxurious spacecraft. He said that Lu Yin needed to show off his presence, but Lu Yin firmly refused. When he looked back at Zenustar, he could faintly see a majestic amount of rune lines flash by. Lu Yin was certain that this powerhouse was here to deal with him. The speed of the collapsible flying ship was extremely fast. After an hour, the meteorites whizzed past, and the flying ship easily dodged them. These meteorites did not need to be dodged, and with the collapsible flying ship's defense, it could directly crash into them. However, there was a meteorite that they had to give up because it wasn't just a meteorite. Within the meteorite, there was a long spear that was piercing towards the spaceship. Inside the spacecraft, Ku Wei was still rambling on about progenitor Chen's glorious past. Lu Yin kicked him out of the spacecraft and stored it away. At the same time, he put on his universal armor. Be careful. Ku Wei was stunned by Lu Yin's kick, and he was even more stunned when he heard Lu Yin's words. Suddenly, the heavens changed, and the boundless starry sky brought about an unimaginable pressure that caused both of their brains to tremble. This was a spiritual force attack. Lu Yin's expression changed. This was indeed a Day-Night clan expert, and his power level was definitely not lower than 400,000. He looked at Ku Wei, afraid that he would be killed. At a glance, Ku Wei was hiding inside a withered piece of rotten wood. No one knew when he had done it, but he seemed to be quite familiar with it. The number of rune lines that the rotten wood represented was actually about the same as the powerhouse that had attacked them. What the hell? How could Ku Wei have such a powerful power vessel? In the distance, an elder from the Day-Night clan glanced over at Lu Yin and stared in shock at the rotten wood that Ku Wei was hiding in. That's the Ku family's power vessel, withered wood. Is this kid related to the Ku family? No wonder he was able to cultivate to such a realm in just 12 short years. He must be from the Seven Courts. Two enlighters attacked Lu Yin from the left and right, ignoring Ku Wei. Lu Yin had tricked Ku Wei into coming out because he wanted to see Ku Wei's trump card, and now he had seen it. When he saw the two enlighters attack him, Lu Yin did not dodge. Instead, he focused on the Day-Night powerhouse in front of him, who had the most terrifying rune lines. The distance between them could not obstruct Lu Yin's domain, and he saw an old man with black and white hair that was streaked with gray. He was from the Night King clan. Bang! Bang! Two loud sounds rang out as the two enlighters' attacks landed on Lu Yin's body. However, Lu Yin did not move at all. He simply raised a hand and grabbed both of them. His overlaying stacks and 9-line battle force caused the two enlighters to howl in pain as they immediately used their spiritual force battle techniques. Unfortunately, their spiritual force was useless against Lu Yin. Lu Yin exerted strength in his hands and their arms were torn apart. They retreated at the same time as fresh blood dripped into outer space. Lu Yin's gaze turned cold, and his body flashed as he appeared in front of one of the enlighters. The enlighter roared as it was actually the Night King's roar. Lu Yin raised a hand and slapped down, and the enormous strength of his 9-lined battle force shattered the Night King's roar. His palm landed on the enlighter's chest, splitting it open and sending him flying into the distance. Behind Lu Yin, the other enlighter whose arm had been torn apart viciously charged at Lu Yin. His eyes became extremely sinister and rune lines with a power level of 250,000 flooded out. Lu Yin could not see a clear attack, but the rune lines were there, so there was no need to think about it. This was definitely a spiritual force attack, and the strangest thing about this person was his eyes. Lu Yin's pupils transformed into runes that directly weakened the rune lines in his opponent's eyes. That person howled in grief, crying out in pain. Lu Yin panted slightly. Although these two enlighters were not as strong as him, they had still made him expend quite a bit of energy. If it had not been someone from the Day-Night clan but rather someone from the Sword Sect or the Blaze Realm, then it would have been even more troublesome. Lu Yin's spiritual force resistance was the bane of the Day-Night clan. Lu Yin did not panic as he looked at the Night King elder in the distance, who had not moved at all. With his universal armor and the Stonewall scriptures, that person would not be able to harm him. Kid, you're not bad, but it's a pity that you've offended my Day-Night clan, the Night King elder slowly said as he approached. Lu Yin sneered. You're just like Night King Zhenwu, and there's also that Night King Chongfeng and Night Queen Yanqing. You guys are quite detestable. The elder's gaze turned cold. A loose tongue can cause trouble. Kid, don't make a mistake. Aren't you here to kill me? Are you going to give me a chance? Lu Yin mocked. The elder had a strange look in his eyes. Sure. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? The elder raised 3 fingers. First, return our clan's inheritance stone. Second, publicly apologize to our clan. Third, tell us everything about the third Night King. As long as you can fulfill these 3 conditions, I promise not to kill you. Lu Yin laughed and looked at the elder mockingly. You don't want me to pledge allegiance to your Day-Night clan? The elder frowned. Kid, are you toying with me? Lu Yin shrugged. Didn't you discuss this with Night King Zhenwu before coming here? The conditions he gave me were much better than yours. He promised me that if I reached the progenitor realm in the future, he'd guarantee me eternal glory. You're too insincere. The elder's tone turned cold. Seems like you're looking for death. Since that's the case, I'll fulfill your wish. As he spoke, the originally dark space suddenly turned extremely cold. The void visibly froze and the frost gradually spread towards Lu Yin. Was this ice? No, this was spiritual force. That wasn't right either. This was star energy turning into ice, and it was an attack supported by spiritual force. The elder wanted to use this attack to freeze Lu Yin's spiritual force. Lu Yin did not dare to compete with an old freak whose power level was over 400,000. He hurriedly recited the Stonewall scriptures and rushed towards the elder. The giant's right arm appeared and Lu Yin punched out. The elder had not expected Lu Yin to take the initiative to attack him and even break through his battle technique. How was this possible? Even Night King Zhenwu could not do this. Lu Yin's actions had clearly exceeded the elder's expectations. However, the elder was still a powerhouse with a power level of over 400,000, and he had plenty of battle experience. Even if he did not fear Lu Yin, he still subconsciously dodged Lu Yin's attack. At the same time, a long sword appeared in his hand and he stabbed out. The void split open and an extremely sharp sword chi accompanied the attack, along with a terrifying spiritual force. Against the elder, Lu Yin could only brace himself. He could not dodge or counterattack. The sword chi pierced through the void and struck Lu Yin, sending him flying. The ice froze him and the spiritual force swept towards him in an attempt to destroy him. Lu Yin's eyes trembled as he saw nightfall. In the distance, the elder was shocked. You actually learned nightfall. Kid, I have to say that you're very talented, but you've offended someone you shouldn't have. Lu Yin finally managed to slow down his attacks and stabilize himself in outer space, but his abdomen still hurt. His universal armor had blocked the elder's sword chi, but the sword chi's sharp force had still penetrated his armor and injured his abdomen, though it was not a serious injury. The elder had not expected Lu Yin to survive his attack. Not only was there not a single drop of blood, but Lu Yin's spiritual force was also fine. What was going on? If the Day-Night clan had not been so arrogant and conceited, then they would have known everything about Lu Yin. In the Outerverse, everyone recognized one thing. Lu Yin had an endless supply of external items and fighting with him was just asking for trouble. On the other side, Ku Wei was hiding within the withered tree. He had thought that Lu Yin was dead for sure, but he had not expected this kid to actually survive. Could he really have been nurtured by the Hall of Honor? No, that's not right. This kid's information was very clear. Lu Yin did not hesitate and charged towards the elder. Against such a powerhouse, the longer he delayed, the more unlucky he would be. The elder was very cautious and did not engage in close combat with Lu Yin. Even though Lu Yin was just a cruiser, the elder still avoided him, which made Lu Yin rather sullen. Old man, is there any point in dodging when you're fighting with a junior like me? You must have learned your battle techniques from Master's wife. The elder sneered. Before I came here, someone told me that you're very crafty and that you're good at sneak attacks. Even if you were a Lemeter or a Melder, I wouldn't give you a chance, let alone a cruiser. Lu Yin had to admit defeat. There was no way he could win against such an old man, and he did not have anything on him that could deal a fatal blow to the elder. He had to constantly endure the elder's attacks, and Lu Yin had lost count of how many times he had been sent flying. The elder from the Day-Night clan was even more sullen than Lu Yin. He was an expert from an Innerverse clan with a power level of over 400,000, but he was helpless against a cruiser. No one would believe him. He finally understood Night King Yuanjing's words. This person was truly difficult to deal with. The elder had spent so much effort to bring 2 Day-Night clan experts across the Astral River, but it had all been for naught. Thanks. Book friend 5421014. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your support, brothers. Chapter 1050. The commotion caused by the battle in outer space was too great, and it attracted the attention of the surrounding Weave's armies. The elder from the Day-Night clan fought with Lu Yin for 20 minutes, but he was unable to break through Lu Yin's defenses. He had no choice but to leave. Kid, it won't end well for you to make an enemy out of the Day-Night clan. Think about it carefully. Lu Yin quietly watched the Day-Night clan member leave. Even the dead enlighter had been taken away. The Day-Night clan did not want anyone else to know about this, and neither did Lu Yin. His position was not stable yet, and it would be detrimental to the Great Eastern Alliance if he exposed a mortal enemy like the Day-Night clan. Everyone knew that he had a conflict with the Day-Night clan, but it had not reached the point where they would fight to the death. After the elder from the Day-Night clan left, Ku Wei put away the piece of dead wood and rushed over to Lu Yin. You knew that someone was going to attack us, didn't you? You deliberately lured me out. Lu Yin's tone turned sour. Evidence? Ku Wei was furious. What bullshit evidence? You were able to kick me out of the way right before they attacked, which proves that you have the ability to discover them. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't discover their abilities. You saw it for yourself. That old man's power level is extremely high. Ku Wei gritted his teeth and glared at Lu Yin. Only a fool would believe you. It's up to you to believe it or not. Lu Yin did not care. Ku Wei ground his teeth in anger, but there was nothing he could do about Lu Yin. He was truly afraid as he had almost been finished. That old freak had a power level of over 400,000. Fortunately, he had brought that piece of deadwood with him. Otherwise, that spiritual force attack would have turned him into a fool even if he had not died. At that time, Progenitor Chen's tomb and the Ku family's great legacy would have been gone. Of course, Lu Yin had done this on purpose. With someone from the Seven Courts by his side, it was necessary to test the waters from time to time. He had originally thought that Ku Wei's imminent danger would attract the older generation of powerhouses from the Seven Courts, but he had not expected the guy to survive on his own. The foundations of these ancient powers were truly unfathomable. What was that piece of deadwood that you were hiding behind? Lu Yin asked curiously. Ku Wei unhappily answered, I picked it up. I don't know. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. Is that so? Think about it. Ku Wei was just about to open his mouth to express his anger when he saw Lu Yin's icy glare. It was as if he wanted to beat someone up. Ku Wei panicked and his anger made him lose all reason. He had forgotten that this person had defeated one of the 10 arbiters, and that Lu Yin was comparable to a top descendant of the Seven Courts. Ku Wei was no match for Lu Yin, and he was hoping that Lu Yin would help him. Suddenly, Ku Wei's anger vanished and he forced a smile onto his face. I'm sorry, Your Highness, but I remember now. That's my Ku family's unique treasure, the time-withered wood. I don't know how it was created, but its defensive capabilities are quite high. When I was out on a mission, my elders gave me a piece of it. Does your Ku family have a lot of time-withered wood? Ku Wei hurriedly shook his head. Very little. Seeing that Lu Yin did not seem to believe him, Ku Wei grew anxious. Your Highness, it really is very little. How can there be many treasures that can withstand an attack with a power level of over 400,000? I'm sure Your Highness won't have more than 2. Lu Yin replied, Don't worry, I won't ask you for it. What's the rush? Ku Wei's mouth twitched as he did not trust Lu Yin's character at all. It was not as if he did not know that Lu Yin loved money. Since your Ku family has the time-withered wood, then what about the other families of the Seven Courts? Ku Wei thought about it. Basically all of them have it. The Su family has the motionless chessboard, the Yu family has the sticks, and so on. After all, it would be impossible for them to resist the Hall of Honor without some trump cards. Lu Yin's eyes flashed and he was even more certain of his previous guess. The Neoverse definitely had not used its full strength to resist the Sixth Mainland. The Sixth Mainland had been able to suppress the Fifth Mainland because of that inexplicable suppression, as well as the power, bloodlines, martial seals, and secret techniques bestowed upon them by the third progenitor. The Seven Courts originated from a progenitor, and every family should have similar methods. The Hall of Honor had been able to suppress the Seven Courts, which meant that they had even more such methods. However, Lu Yin had not seen any of them during the battle in the Cosmic Sea. What was the Neoverse thinking? Lu Yin's imagination ran wild and Ku Wei grew more and more anxious. He was afraid that Lu Yin would force him to hand over the time-withered wood, so he hurriedly asked, "Your Highness, will that old guy from the Day-Night clan come? Should we report this to the Hall of Honor?" Lu Yin replied, "There's no point in reporting it. The Hall of Honor monitors the humans, but they still need evidence. Besides, I haven't been killed yet, so the Hall of Honor can't do anything. Those fellows are really daring to make a move on you. If they really kill you, then the entire Day-Night clan will suffer," Ku Wei said angrily. Lu Yin shook his head. "It depends on the timing. There's a high chance that Night King Zhenwu will become one of the 5 astral children, and the Day-Night clan has become a Hall of Honor family because of the commander appointment platform. Even the Hall of Honor will have to give the Day-Night clan some face." At this point, Lu Yin suddenly realized something. Why was he discussing this with Ku Wei? "Let's go to the Dark Phoenix clan," Lu Yin said. Ku Wei was shocked. "Are we really going to the Dark Phoenix clan?" Obviously. The Dark Phoenix clan had announced that their clan would be sealed for 100 years, and all the major powers that were on good terms with them had received the notice. The 16 layers of black flames had shaken the outerverse, and no one had been able to pass through them. Even the Phoenix family had been afraid of them. However, everything had changed after Lu Yin's visit. Out of the 16 layers of black flames, only the last layer remained. Even though this layer was the most powerful and was enough to strike fear into the hearts of envoys, it was still too thin. It was so thin that one could see the entire black flame continent through it. This feeling was like wearing a transparent coat that could not completely cover the inside. For a large clan like the Dark Phoenix clan, this was rather embarrassing. The entire Dark Phoenix clan was cursing Lu Yin. Now the Dark Phoenix clan was facing an awkward situation. They had sealed their clan for 100 years, and the last layer of black flames could not completely cover them. This was rather embarrassing. If they had not sealed their clan, then the notice they had sent to the outside world would have been child's play. Because of this, the Dark Phoenix clan had been discussing this matter for a long time. On this day, just as Daniel Phineas was continuing the clan meeting, the last layer of black flames distorted. They would never forget this scene, as this was what had happened when the 15th layer of black flames had disappeared. Daniel Phineas and the rest hurriedly rushed to the edge of the black flame continent, and they saw Lu Yin through the last layer of black flames. An indescribable feeling of grievance, resentment, helplessness, and regret lingered in Daniel Phineas's heart. Finally, he roared, "What are you trying to do, Lu Yin?" Lu Yin pursed his lips as the Heaven Firestone continued to absorb the last layer of black flames. Ku Wei stood beside him while the Dark Phoenix clan's cultivators who were guarding the continent stood behind them. Through the layer of black flames, Lu Yin could see the furious gazes of Daniel Phineas and the rest, and he felt a little embarrassed. His current actions were no different from theft. No, it was not theft, it was robbery. Ku Wei stepped forward. "Our Highness saw that this continent was being burned by the black flames and could not bear to see the residents suffer, so he came to save them. There's no need to thank him." Lu Yin sighed when he heard this. These words were well said. He had come to save the ordinary people who were suffering from the high temperatures of the black flame continent. He was doing a good deed. Daniel Phineas was so angry that his entire body trembled. The higher-ups of the Dark Phoenix clan around him were furious as well, and many of them cursed, "Shameless! Despicable! How can he say such things? This bandit! Only an idiot would believe him." Lu Yin raised his head with a solemn expression. "Clan leader Daniel, I heard that the Black Flame continent is being roasted by the flames. You must be suffering unimaginable pain from the high temperatures. Since I'm the commander of the Outerverse Allied Forces and the Great Eastern Alliance's alliance leader, I cannot ignore this." Ku Wei loudly replied, "Hurry up and thank the alliance leader. Prepare some food and wine to welcome him." Another wave of curses rang out from the Dark Phoenix clan, all of them directed at Ku Wei. This guy was a standard lackey. Lu Yin also realized that this guy had a lot of potential. At this point, many of the Dark Phoenix clan's members had shifted their anger from Lu Yin to Ku Wei. This guy was too infuriating. "Alliance leader Lu, please be merciful," Daniel Phineas hurriedly said. He did not wish for the last layer of black flames to be absorbed by Lu Yin. However, Lu Yin acted as if he did not hear him. Ku Wei shouted, "No need to be polite. Our alliance leader will not feel tired for your safety. Don't worry, we will definitely absorb all of the black flames." We will also find a way to find the person who released the Black Flames and make the culprit apologize to the entire Black Flame continent. Daniel Phineas grew anxious. Alliance leader Lu, these are the Black Flames of my Dark Phoenix clan. Please be merciful. Ku Wei shouted back, no need to be polite. You're too polite, Patriarch Daniel. Alliance leader Lu, Patriarch Daniel. Countless Dark Phoenix clan members gritted their teeth at Ku Wei, their hatred for him reaching the heavens. Ku Wei did not care at all. This was just a clan from the outerverse that had been chased out from the innerverse. Just mentioning their name would scare them to death. Separated by a layer of black flames, no matter how loudly Daniel Phineas shouted, he was disrupted by Ku Wei. In the end, the last layer of black flames was absorbed by the Heavenfire Stone. This layer of black flames was extremely powerful, and Lu Yin could feel the Heavenfire Stone burning as he held it. He felt that if he had not used his die to upgrade the Heavenfire Stone, then perhaps the stone's ability to withstand the flames would have caused that fire dragon to appear. When the black flames completely disappeared, Daniel Phineas and the rest felt their hearts sink. The 16 layers of black flames that their ancestor had set up to protect them were completely gone. Their Dark Phoenix clan had lost the right to be a sealing clan, and they had also lost the ability to defend against envoys. In just a few short years, the three great powers of the outerverse that could not be provoked had been pulled down from their pedestals by Lu Yin. The Temple of Taimo had submitted to him, and they had lost the protection of Ancestor Arrow Mountain. They did not dare to resist Lu Yin at all. Even Wan Qianqing did not dare to offend Lu Yin. No matter how wealthy Wan Qianqing was, it was still a war fortress that was restricted by the commander of the outerverse allied forces. If Lu Yin wanted to, he could make Wan Qianqing appear anywhere in the outerverse at any time. There was only one reason for that. A powerful enemy could invade that place. Finally, the Dark Phoenix clan had its 16 layers of black flames absorbed by Lu Yin. Coupled with the death of ancestor Daniel Phineas, the clan had completely lost its ability to intimidate the outerverse. The once glorious three great powers had completely declined, and they had been replaced by the Great Eastern Alliance. With the fig leaf gone, the Dark Phoenix clan no longer dared to provoke Lu Yin. They had no one to reason with, so they had no choice but to follow Ku Wei's instructions and host a banquet for Lu Yin. Ku Wei was very happy as he liked to see people who clearly wanted to eat him up but still had to welcome him with a smile. It was a very satisfying feeling. Thank you. Book friend 542104114. I'll give you my brother's reward. Thank you for your support. Thank you. Besides, our clan has a good relationship with Astral 9, which is something that the Phoenix family is wary of. Lu Yin nodded. The Astral Combat Academy seemed like an ordinary academy, but there were many hidden powerhouses. Astral 9's president's strength was terrifying. That night, Phineas and the Dark Phoenix clan received Lu Yin with a grand reception. Their attitude had changed very quickly. Back then they had hated Lu Yin and had been arrogant enough to send an army to attack the Great Eastern Alliance. Now that they had joined the Great Eastern Alliance, their former arrogance had disappeared. Lu Yin had also discussed Tyler Phineas' death with Phineas. Tyler Phineas had not been killed by Lu Yin, but rather by Hugh Phineas' instigation. Phineas solemnly apologized to Lu Yin. Lu Yin accepted the apology. Although Tyler Phineas had not been killed by him, it was still closely related to him. Lu Yin was not apologetic about this matter at all. Tyler Phineas had provoked him and even cooperated with Hugh Phineas to ambush Lu Yin. He had died too quickly or else Lu Yin would have killed him. For the sake of his clan, Phineas could be considered to have swallowed his anger. They could tolerate Lu Yin's anger but they could not tolerate Ku Wei's. During the banquet that night, one Dark Phoenix youth after another challenged Ku Wei. Ku Wei's interest was piqued as he loved to bully these people. In his own words, frogs at the bottom of a well were easy to step on. With a thump, another Dark Phoenix youth was defeated, and his entire body was smashed into the wall. Ku Wei laughed as he had already defeated 12 Dark Phoenix clansmen in a row. The Dark Phoenix clansmen present all had ugly expressions. They had wanted to teach Ku Wei a lesson, but they had ended up being taught a lesson instead. Lu Yin drank his wine with a calm expression. Phineas could not help but ask, Alliance leader Lu, where is this little brother from? He's quite strong. Lu Ying smiled. Don't praise him, patriarch. He's already reached his limit. Is that so? Phineas's eyes flashed and he glanced down at Lu Phineas. Lu Phineas stood up and faced Ku Wei. Brother, let's exchange some pointers. Ku Wei raised his brows and seriously sized up Lu Phineas. He knew that someone who dared to challenge him at this time definitely had some skills. What's your name? Lu Phineas. Ku Wei frowned as he seemed to have heard of this name before. Lu Ying looked at Lu Phineas. This person had been recommended by Wei Rong as the #1 expert of the Dark Phoenix clan's younger generation. He far surpassed Tyler Phineas and was evaluated as someone who could challenge the 10 arbiters. Lu Ying had always been curious about this person's innate gift, and today he would be able to see it for himself. When they saw Lu Phineas take action, the Dark Phoenix clansmen's expressions brightened, as they felt that they would definitely win. If you want to fight, then fight. Ku Wei's attitude was casual, but there was a rare look of seriousness in his eyes. Lu Phineas's expression was solemn and he stepped forward. Black flames burned the sky, and the high temperature caused Ku Wei's expression to change. This person was indeed different from the others from before. The black flames transformed into a majestic hand that pressed down on Ku Wei. The void distorted as traces of spatial cracks spread out. This attack surpassed a hunter's strength. Ku Wei raised his hand and stared at the black flames. As the black flames descended, his lips curled up and his hands danced about. His body shifted and with each movement the black flames shrank a little. Soon Lu Phineas's black flames completely disappeared. The Dark Phoenix clansmen were shocked. He's actually using a lock-breaking technique. This kid's lock-breaking ability is quite good. It's a perceptive intermediate lock-breaking ability, someone recognized. He can lock-break as well. Lu Phineas was astonished and his gaze turned cold. Even more terrifying black flames rose from the ground and completely enveloped Ku Wei. He had experienced lock-breaking before and it required time, but his black flames did not. Ku Wei retreated step by step. The black flames were extremely invasive, and the temperature was so high that even Lu Ying could feel the heat. Lu Phineas was indeed someone who could challenge the 10 arbiters in the future. His rune lines were enormous and he was definitely in the top 10 of the top 100 rankings. Ku Wei still wanted to use lock-breaking techniques and battle experience, but he would definitely lose. Interesting. I never thought that the Dark Phoenix tribe would have an expert like you. Ku Wei's interest was piqued. As he spoke, his domain surged out and enveloped the entire area. At the same time, a giant finger descended. This was a force field and it pointed towards Lu Phineas. The surrounding Dark Phoenix clansmen were disdainful. A force field was a very powerful attack and there were very few people in the entire universe who could comprehend a force field. However, such an attack was useless against the Dark Phoenix tribe, as their black flames were enough to burn through force fields. Everyone had thought that Lu Phineas would be able to easily burn through Ku Wei's force field, but Lu Phineas stood there like a fool, allowing the finger to descend and smash him into the ground. All of the Dark Phoenix clansmen were stunned. What was going on? Why wasn't he moving? If Lu Phineas was not from the Dark Phoenix tribe, they would have suspected that this was all an act. Daniel Phineas and the other older experts of the Dark Phoenix tribe stared at Ku Wei with solemn expressions. That finger? Beneath the ground, Lu Phineas had not been seriously injured. That finger had not contained much power, which meant that Ku Wei had held back. Lu Phineas knew that he had been defeated, but what was going on? The moment that finger descended, Lu Phineas saw everything turn gray as if everything around him was withering. His heart was strangely peaceful and he had no desire to resist at all. He simply allowed the finger to strike him down. What kind of power was this? Lu Ying was still shocked when he saw finger tap again. This was the Ku family's ultimate battle technique. He had only learned the surface of finger tap, and he had only been able to train his fingers to the point where he could use the dream finger a few times. He had yet to learn the true power of finger tap. Daniel Phineas looked at Lu Ying with a solemn expression. Your Highness, who is this? No matter how stupid he was, he still realized that Ku Wei was not an ordinary person. Lu Phineas was at least in the top 10 of the top 100 rankings, But he had still been defeated without even being able to use his innate gift. Lu Yin replied, "His surname is Ku. Don't you know that?" Daniel Phineas replied, "I know his surname is Ku. Hold on." Chapter 1052. Lu Yin looked at the base of the mountain where Lu Phineas had appeared. What's he doing here? Ku Wei was puzzled. Lu Phineas soon arrived and looked at Ku Wei. "So it's someone from the Seven Courts Ku family. Sorry for not recognizing you." Ku Wei waved a hand. "Don't be so polite. What are you doing here? Do you still want to fight?" Lu Phineas nodded. "I do, but not with you." He then looked at Lu Yin. "Alliance leader Lu, can you show me the difference between me and the 10 arbiters?" Ku Wei was shocked. "Are you itching to challenge him?" Lu Phineas shook his head. "It's not a challenge. I just want to experience the difference between me and the 10 arbiters. In the future I will definitely challenge them." Ku Wei rolled his eyes. Challenging the 10 arbiters was easy for him to say, but even he did not dare to fight them head-on. Even the most powerful descendants of the Neoverse would not dare to underestimate the 10 arbiters, as they were all monsters. Lu Yin understood Lu Phineas's thoughts. Back then he had also experienced the difference between him and the top 100 rankings through Wendy Yushan. For someone who aimed to become one of the 10 arbiters, it was normal for him to desire to know the difference. Have you thought it through? Knowing the difference between you and the 10 arbiters might give you more motivation to cultivate, but it might also make you despair. Lu Phineas's expression was solemn. "Yes." Lu Yin nodded. "All right, I'll fulfill your wish." Lu Phineas clenched his fists. "Alliance leader Lu, please excuse me." Black flames filled the sky and surged towards Lu Yin. Ku Wei stood by Lu Yin's side without moving. Lu Yin's eyes trembled. Nightfall. Lu Phineas was shocked and all he saw was darkness. The boundless spiritual force not only dispersed the black flames, but it also pressed down on him. It felt like the entire sky was collapsing. He had never experienced such a terrifying spiritual force before, not even against his family's elders. This was the spiritual force of the 10 arbiters. Ku Wei looked at Lu Phineas with pity. Fighting against the 10 arbiters was simply asking for a beating. He had thought that Lu Phineas had been defeated. After all, not everyone could withstand the spiritual force pressure of the 10 arbiters. Furthermore, Lu Yin had even used Nightfall, a battle technique that could perfectly display the spiritual force. However, in the next moment, Phineas suddenly raised his head with blood at the corner of his mouth. A green light appeared in the darkness brought by Nightfall. It grew brighter and brighter, gradually illuminating the darkness. That green color was fire, and it ignited the darkness. It transformed into a flame, wind, sea, and sky that illuminated the darkness. This was the azure sky flame, Phineas's innate skill. It was extremely hot and it could burn one's essence, energy, and soul. This was a talent that could incinerate enemies with high temperatures as well as burn their spirit. This was the innate skill that had shocked the entire Dark Phoenix clan, green heavenly flames. Lu Yin was astonished and his spiritual force dissipated as he looked at Phineas. Even Nightfall was unable to penetrate these flames. What a miraculous innate gift. Phineas panted heavily as he stared at Lu Yin. Logically speaking, his innate gift could restrain spiritual force, but Lu Yin's spiritual force was just too powerful. Furthermore, he also had a powerful battle technique like Nightfall, which even Phineas' innate gift could not restrain. Fortunately, he was still able to escape from Nightfall's suppression. Lu Yin sighed. It's no wonder why Elder Tanner and the others are so certain that you can challenge the 10 arbiters in the future. Your innate gift is truly powerful. Phineas felt bitter. Was it powerful? He thought so as well, but even with such a powerful innate gift, he could only protect himself from this person's attacks. Ku Wei was astonished. Your innate gift is not bad at all. If the Day-Night clan finds out about this, you'll become their mortal enemy. The Day-Night clan specialized in spiritual force attacks, but Phineas's azure sky flame was able to burn away spiritual force, so he was indeed their mortal enemy. Even Lu Yin's Nightfall had been burned away, which meant that only Night King Zhenwu and Zhou Day Knight's unparalleled battle techniques could deal with the azure sky flame. Spiritual force is only one type of attack. Although it's powerful, it's not the only one. Otherwise, the Day-Night clan would have been invincible a long time ago. Next, try this. Lu Yin raised a finger that was supported by 9-line battle force. He flicked his finger and with a bang, a gale tore through the void and bombarded Phineas's body. Phineas's azure sky flame was pierced through, and the gale sent him flying. He spat out a mouthful of blood in midair, but he was caught by an elder from the Dark Phoenix clan. The elder was an enlighter, and the moment he caught Phineas, he was also forced back by the enormous force. It took him a great deal of effort to stabilize himself, and he stared at Lu Yin in shock. Just a casual attack had contained such terrifying power, and it was definitely not weaker than an enlighter's strength. Phineas had already fainted as his body could not withstand this attack at all. This was the strength of a 10 arbiters, and Phineas was still too weak in comparison. Ku Wei gulped. Your Highness is mighty. Lu Yin looked at Ku Wei. Do you want to experience it? Ku Wei's face paled. There's no need, Your Highness. I'm on your side. Lu Yin turned to look into the distance. Perhaps there would come a day when Phineas could rely on his azure sky flame to challenge the top 3 of the top 100 rankings, but he would never be able to challenge the 10 arbiters. This was the difference between their levels. In the past, Lu Yin had not been clear about this, but ever since the battle at the Immerse General Appointment platform and his revival using the arcane art of life and death, he finally understood that the 10 arbiters had undefeatable power. This was why they were called the 10 arbiters. Lu Yin had defeated Lan Si and stepped into the 10 arbiters' realm. To Phineas and the others, he now possessed an undefeatable power. With a single finger, an opponent that Lu Yin had once treated seriously had been defeated. Was he being serious? Lu Yin admitted that he had not been. At the very least, the fates and within his body had not been transferred, which meant that he had not used its full strength. Otherwise, that attack would have killed Phineas, and that enlighter from the Dark Phoenix clan would not have been able to catch him. Lu Yin did not stay on the Black Flame continent for long before he left with Ku Wei. His next destination was Calm Orchid Planet. He wanted the people of the Sea King's Dome to support Lan Si in retaining his position as one of the 10 arbiters. That way, even if he had not become one of the 10 arbiters, he would still be able to influence them. Elsewhere, on a planet not far from Shenwu continent, the void distorted as a figure staggered out and looked around. Is this the space where Brother Lu is? I'm not an explorer yet, but I can fly through space. Is this the direction that Master pointed me in? The figure quickly headed in a certain direction. Within his collapsible spacecraft, Lu Yin's gadget beeped with a notification from the Hall of Honor. Lu Yin's status as a member of the Hall of Honor's FOTC will be temporarily revoked until he is cleared of any suspicions of being a traitor. Lu Yin was shocked and immediately tried to contact Master Yuan, but he could not reach him. The signal from Master Yuan's location was often unreachable. Helpless, Lu Yin quickly changed directions and headed to the southern weave to look for Master Yuan. Ku Wei was confused. Your Highness, you're not going to Calm Orchid Planet anymore. Lu Yin's face was gloomy. Ku Wei tactfully did not say anything else. His status as a member of the Hall of Honor's FOTC had been revoked, which meant that he could no longer compete for the Star Tower in the Neoverse. This was a huge blow to him. Only the Hall of Honor's FOTC, the heirs of the Neoverse's great factions, or the Sixth Mainland's invading kings could compete for the Star Tower. Aside from his identity as FOTC, he was nothing. Now that FOTC's identity had been stripped away, he had lost the right to compete for the Star Tower. He could not accept this no matter what. Not long after, Lu Yin arrived at Master Yuan's location. He had Ku Wei wait outside while he went in to look for Master Yuan. Master Yuan was puzzled. Your status as a member of the Hall of Honor has been revoked? Lu Yin replied, it's temporarily revoked until I'm cleared of any suspicions of being a traitor. Master Yuan nodded. Understood. I'll contact him. Lu Yin waited, feeling a little uneasy. His status as a member of the Hall of Honor had originated from Master Yuan, but now even Master Yuan had not been aware of it. This meant that someone with a higher status had taken action. Could it be? Lu Yin's face paled. Had his theft of the blood-colored bell been exposed? That was impossible. If he had been exposed, then he would have been immediately killed by the Hall of Honor. The blood-colored bell represented the interstellar arbitration's head inquisitor, who was the most powerful person in the human domain. No one dared to ask about anything that involved such a person. Even Master Yuan would not ask the inquisitor why Lu Yin had a blood-colored bell. For now, as long as Lu Yin did not directly interact with the inquisitor, he would not be exposed. That meant that Night King Zhenwu had taken action, and his influence was even greater than Master Yuan's? Lu Yin did not believe it. After a while, Master Yuan opened his eyes and looked at Lu Yin. Night King Zhenwu used 20 honor points to prove that you are a traitor of the 5th mainland and that you colluded with the 6th mainland to steal the commander's platform. This is a testimony that cost a large amount of honor points, and even I cannot erase it. Lu Yin's gaze turned cold. 20 honor points was a price that Night King Zhenwu was willing to pay. He had worked hard to help the Outerverse survive several crises, participate in the border wars and participate in the tournament of the strongest, but he had only earned 20 honor points. Where had Night King Zhenwu gotten 20 honor points from? Lu Yin voiced his doubts. Master Yuan answered, he exposed someone called Shui Chuanshao who betrayed the human domain, and he received 10 honor points in one go. Lu Yin understood. So Shui Chuanshao had been exposed by Master Yuan. Chapter 1053. To be able to become one of the 10 arbiters, Night King Zhenwu's courage, methods, temperament and strength were all extraordinary. He had used useless honor points to sever Lu Yin's future, and he had taken the initiative. No, it was more accurate to say that he had been the one to take the initiative since Zhou Day Night was in his hands. Everything he had done was too dark. Lu Yin couldn't help but think back to Elena Garrett's diary that he had obtained when he had rolled point. The diary had been filled with grief, regret, despair and an indescribable deathly stillness. His hopes had turned into despair, and that was how Elena Garrett's diary had made him feel. Zhou Day Night was also experiencing this feeling. 2 months later, her experience would be even more profound, to the point where words could not describe it. What did a person have to go through to do such a thing? If the Neo-Human Alliance represented the ultimate darkness, then Night King Zhenwu represented the ultimate darkness of human nature. Night King Zhenwu had already made his move, and Lu Yin had no choice but to respond. He immediately contacted Night King Yuanjing. The Night King bloodline had sent people to assassinate him, but these people had clearly not been sent by Night King Zhenwu. Even with Night King Zhenwu's ability, he could not have sent out powerhouses with power levels above 400,000. This meant that while the upper echelons of the Night King bloodline valued Night King Zhenwu, they might not necessarily follow his wishes. In the eyes of the upper echelons of the Night King bloodline, the importance of the inheritance stone was self-evident. Night King Yuanjing's image appeared and he beamed at Lu Yin. Little Yin, are you looking for Grandpa Yuanjing? Lu Yin felt a wave of disgust when he saw Night King Yuanjing's smile. Both sides had already shed all pretense of cordiality, so there was no need for him to pretend. He calmly asked, does the Night King bloodline know what Night King Zhenwu did? Night King Yuanjing replied, are you talking about how he accused you of being a traitor to the 5th mainland and used honor points as a guarantee? Lu Yin nodded. Night King Yuanjing was helpless. That's a matter between the two of you and we can't interfere. Young people are too impulsive. Lu Yin smiled and took out the Day-Night clan's inheritance stone from his cosmic ring. Does the Night King bloodline still need this? Night King Yuanjing's eyes blazed as he stared at Lu Yin. It really is in your hands. Then when will you return it? Lu Yin casually tossed the stone up and down. As long as Night King Zhenwu withdraws his accusation, the inheritance stone can be returned. Night King Yuanjing's eyes were filled with disdain. Zhenwu has his own ideas and we can't force him. However, I can help you ask around. Lu Yin's the Night bloodline. Night King Yuanjing ended the call. 7th bro, that old fellow is still playing hard to get. Who is he trying to fool? The ghost monkey said angrily. Lu Yin's expression was calm as he waited. After a while, Night King Yuanjing's image appeared once more, and he looked at Lu Yin with a vexed expression. Little Yin, isn't the misunderstanding between you and Zhenwu too great? If you have any conditions, just state them. Night King Yuanjing sighed. Zhenwu wants you to apologize to the Day-Night clan in front of the entire universe and also to destroy the battle technique you learned from the inheritance stone. Lu Yin's gaze turned cold. Cripple myself? How can I cripple myself? Night King Yuanjing replied, I've completely overdrawn my spiritual force and will never be able to recover. Lu Yin's lips curled up into a smile. Night King Yuanjing shook his head. I know that this condition is too much, but my Day-Night clan never imparts battle techniques to outsiders. Since you've learned them, then it's only natural that they be destroyed. Besides, he had also wanted to go to the Day-Night clan. If he didn't go, how could he fight Night King Zhenwu and kill him? Both of them had the same idea and it all depended on how they acted. Together with Ku Wei, the two of them headed to Calm Orchid Planet. Ku Wei was curious as to what had happened to make Lu Yin's expression so terrifying. Ku Wei asked a few times but still couldn't get an answer and he felt rather helpless. Ku Wei, what do you think of the Day-Night clan? Lu Yin suddenly asked. Ku Wei thought about it. What else can I think of them? They're an arrogant but powerless Innerverse clan. The Day-Night clan has always been trying to find a way to enter the Neoverse, but they just haven't been able to. Why? Lu Yin was puzzled as he didn't believe that all the powers in the Neoverse could surpass the Day-Night clan. The Day-Night clan is tyrannical and unreasonable. What would happen if such people entered the Neoverse? Ku Wei asked disdainfully. Lu Yin asked, how strong is the Day-Night clan? Ku Wei's mouth twitched. Their attitude is one thing, but I have to admit that this clan is quite strong. Even if any of the 7 courts wanted to destroy the Day-Night clan, it would not be easy. In fact, it would be very difficult. Although this clan has never produced a progenitor, and they don't have any inherited secret techniques, they have too many battle techniques. Furthermore, they constantly produce extremely talented clan members. He paused. It's said that this Day-Night clan's ancient origins are not simple, but that's only hearsay. I don't know the details. Ancient origins. Lu Yin was puzzled. Ku Wei nodded. When I was young, I heard the elders mention that the Day-Night clan is just a branch of some ancient superclan. No, that's not right. Seems to be a branch of some ancient superclan. Wait, let me think. Why can't I remember? Lu Yin asked. Forget about the ancient times. Does the current Day-Night clan have any powerhouses with power levels over 1 million? Ku Wei shook his head. I'm not sure. You should ask Master Yuan and the others. They know. Lu Yin continued. Have you heard of the third Night King? Ku Wei was shocked. The third Night King? That's a ruthless person. He killed his way into the astral beast domain alone, and he was the one who made the Day-Night clan so tyrannical. He's definitely a ruthless person. Why is your highness suddenly mentioning him? Lu Yin frowned. The third Night King was still alive. In the past he had used this information to tantalize the Day-Night clan and had obtained many benefits. He had even avoided being schemed against by Night Queen Yanqing and Night King Zhenwu. He had once thought that this was a good thing, but now becoming enemies with the Day-Night clan was a huge hurdle. Although it was basically impossible for the third Night King to escape from the Great Realm of Void, who could say for sure? The sixth mainland's invasion of the astral beast domain might affect the Great Realm of Void. While Lu Yin was lost in his thoughts, the two soon arrived at Anlan Planet. When Lu Yin and Ku Wei arrived, everyone in the Sea King's dome knew about it. Elder Tong was the one who welcomed the two. As one of the 4 great elders of the Sea King's dome and the military advisor of the Sea King's dome, Elder Tong personally came out to greet Lu Yin, which was a great show of respect. After some pleasantries, Lu Yin went straight to the point. Elder Tong, I'm here for no other reason than to ask the Sea King's dome to support Lan Si and retain his authority in the 10 Arbiters' Council. Lan Si had lost to Lu Yin, and although he would not lose his position as one of the 10 Arbiters, his background had been destroyed due to the Kangmeng continent's calamity. Even if he was still one of the 10 Arbiters, his influence and authority would not be as great as before. Thus, Lu Yin needed to find another powerful supporter. The Sea King's dome was the most suitable candidate. Although the Sea King's fate was unknown, with Elder He an envoy-level powerhouse, and the Sea King's dome's influence in the Starfall Sea, it was enough to rival the Kangmeng continent. Elder Tong was puzzled. Why is Alliance Master Lu running around for Lan Si? Could it be that you have other conditions for this battle? Lu Yin nodded. I made an agreement with him. If he wins, the Hall of Honor's position will be his, and if I win, the Lan family will support me unconditionally. Elder Tong understood. No wonder the Lan family moved to the Frostwave Weave. Speaking of which, I must congratulate Alliance Master Lu for defeating Lan Si. From now on, you will truly be one of the top powerhouses of the universe's younger generation. Lu Yin modestly replied, I can't say that I'm at the top. Elder Tong, you flatter me. I wonder if Elder Tong can agree to this junior's request? Elder Tong helplessly replied, I'm sorry, Alliance Master Lu. We are not in the mood to care about anything else right now. We need to think of a way to find the Sea King. From the moment Lu Yin had stepped onto Anlin Planet and met Elder Tong, he had confirmed that the Sea King was still alive. Otherwise, these people from the Sea King's dome would not have such expressions. He had not seen Hai Dashao on Anlin Planet. Hai Feng, Hai Chi-Chi, and the Elder's rune lines indicated that they had all gone out to think of a way. Chapter 1054. Elder Tong, are you sure that Senior Sea King is still alive? Elder Tong nodded and said excitedly, during the battle in the Starry Sky Graveyard, we sensed that the Sea King was still alive, but we were not sure where he was. Can the Sea King's power still be connected? Elder Tong shook his head. Lu Yin thought about it. Elder, have you ever considered that Senior Sea King might not be in the Fifth Mainland? Elder Tong's fingers trembled, but his expression did not change much. Obviously, they had thought of this possibility, and the possibility was very high. Back then, the Sea King had stayed behind with Dao Master Lan and Tian Yanzi to fight against Madame Red so that they could escape. Even if they hadn't died, they might have been taken to the Sixth Mainland along with the Sixth Mainland's retreat. If he went to the Sixth Mainland, he would never be able to return. Elder Tong was silent. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. Elder, there's no need to despair. Even if Senior Sea King was taken to the Sixth Mainland, there's still hope for him to return. If the Sixth Mainland can attack our Fifth Mainland, then we can naturally retaliate against the Sixth Mainland. When I left the Sea King's dome with Chi-Chi, Elder Ren said that he hoped that one day he would be able to go against the current. That day is definitely not far away. Elder Tong's eyes lit up and he was abnormally passionate. That's right. One day we will go against the current, not just to find the Sea King but also for the Fifth Mainland. Before that, I'll do my best to help search for Senior Sea King's tracks, Lu Yin said. Elder Tong stared at Lu Yin with a serious expression. Search? How are you going to search? If he didn't answer this question properly, then everything that he had said before would just be a bluff. He had wanted to trick the Sea King's dome into supporting Lan Si. If that happened, then his impression of the Sea King's dome would be very poor. The reason why Lu Yin could meet people from the Sea King's dome whenever he wanted was because of his status as the Sea King's son-in-law. This status had never disappeared, and many people from the Sea King's dome treated him as one of their own. If Lu Yin had duped the Sea King's dome into supporting Lan Si, then his relationship with the Sea King's dome would deteriorate. Fortunately, Lu Yin wasn't lying. Elder, have you heard of the Daoist sect? Lu Yin asked confidently. Elder Tong's eyes lit up. The ancient Daoist sect? What do you mean, Alliance Master Lu? Lu Yin replied, since Elder has heard of the Daoist sect, then you should have heard of futons as well. This junior just so happens to have a futon that allows me to see those people from the Sixth Mainland at any time. Elder Tong was surprised. You have a futon? Where did it come from? Only the 10 arbiters have them. Lu Yin smiled and took out his futon. Elder Tong was shocked. The moment the futon was taken out, he knew it was real. This strange feeling could not be wrong. Junior can enter the Daoist sect's ruins and search for the people from the Galloping Horse Mountain Villa. I'll think of a way to find out about Senior Sea King's whereabouts. I believe that Senior Sea King should have been taken away by the Galloping Horse Mountain Villa, Lu Yin said. Elder Tong was moved and bowed deeply to Lu Yin. Lu Yin hurriedly helped him up. Elder, what are you doing? I can't accept this. Alliance Master Lu, you don't understand how important the Sea King is to us. Even though he's our master and we're his servants, our relationship is closer than that of brothers. We're willing to do anything for the Sea King, and we'll never be able to repay Alliance Master Lu's great kindness and benevolence. Lu Yin's heart trembled. This was brotherly love. He didn't know why, but at that moment, a young child's voice appeared in his mind. Let's become sworn brothers. From now on we'll be the 7 greats and we'll live and die together. 3rd bro, you're the youngest. From now on you'll be 7th bro. Come greet your brothers and sisters. Hello eldest bro, 2nd bro, 3rd bro, 4th bro, 5th bro, 6th bro. Be good little 7. If anyone bullies you in the future we'll stand up for you. We'll call you little 7 from now on. Go little 7. Don't worry, we won't die. We'll meet again one day. Go. Lu Yin suddenly clutched his chest and took a few steps back. His face was deathly pale and his eyes were filled with tears. His entire body trembled uncontrollably as he endured an indescribable pain. This pain was not an injury but rather heartache. It was so painful that it was difficult to breathe. Elder Tong hurried forward and placed a hand on Lu Yin's shoulder, asking curiously, "Alliance Master Lu, what's wrong?" Lu Yin panted heavily as tears fell from his eyes. Why was he in so much pain? Why did he want to cry? Elder Tong looked at Lu Yin strangely and circulated his star energy, only to discover that Lu Yin was not injured. Lu Yin took a deep breath and waved a hand. "It's nothing. I'm just tired." Elder Tong did not understand but he did not ask further. Lu Yin calmed down and organized his thoughts. He then looked at Elder Tong. "Elder, this junior will think of a way to obtain Senior Sea King's whereabouts from the Galloping Horse Villa's disciples." Elder Tong nodded. "Thank you, Alliance Master Lu. As for Lan Si, the Sea King's dome will fully support him. After all, he can be considered a representative of the Starfall Sea." Lu Yin nodded. "Thank you, Elder." After dealing with Lan Si, Lu Yin planned to leave. Ku Wei had been waiting in the collapsible spacecraft the entire time. The people of the Sea King's dome did not have a good impression of those from the Neoverse, and Ku Wei was from the 7 courts. Lu Yin was about to board the spacecraft when Elder Tong called out to him with a solemn expression. "Alliance Master Lu, have you been temporarily stripped of your status as Fong Zi by the Hall of Honor?" "How does Elder know?" Lu Yin was puzzled. Elder Tong replied, "My Sea King's dome has a good relationship with one of the presiding judges, Virtuous Brightness. He knows that you are my Sea King's dome's prospective son-in-law, so he specifically told me about it." Lu Yin nodded. "That's right. Knight King Zhenwu used 20 honor points to swear that what he said was true. The Hall of Honor will investigate me, and they'll strip me of all my honor points during the investigation. You can't even participate in the Star Tower contest." Elder Tong's expression turned ugly. Lu Yin nodded. Elder Tong snorted. "Knight King Zhenwu, this junior's methods are quite ruthless and decisive." He then looked at Lu Yin. "With Master Yuan's support, Alliance Master Lu shouldn't be at a disadvantage in the Hall of Honor. However, I will also ask for Virtuous Brightness's help." Chapter 1056. Ku Wei could not describe this feeling. He waved his hand and star energy filled the sky. The familiar star energy now looked completely different, as if it was being shown through a microscope. Ku Wei raised a hand and casually fiddled with the star energy. The flow of star energy was much smoother than before and he looked into the distance. The entire sky was filled with star energy and he could see it clearly. Lu Yin stared at Ku Wei curiously. He had upgraded that drop of spring water 14 times, but he did not dare to use it himself. Thus he had used Ku Wei as an experiment and it seemed like the results were quite good. "How do you feel?" Lu Yin asked. Ku Wei was shocked. "Your Highness, this is spring water? It's too mysterious." Lu Yin's eyes lit up. "How does it compare to other lock-breaking tools? It's not even on the same level. Let me put it this way, I feel like I've shrunk countless times to look at this part of the sky. I can clearly see the star energy," Ku Wei said excitedly. Lu Yin was satisfied. Even a normal person would be able to see star energy clearly after a drop of water from the lake, and they would be able to cultivate. Any normal cultivator would be able to use this to unlock a lock breaker. This is too miraculous. Even the cosmic sect might not have such a miraculous lock-breaking tool. I feel that this level of control over star energy should be at the Divine Eye realm, Ku Wei said excitedly. He then looked at Lu Yin and asked, Your Highness, where did this drop of water come from? Lockbreakers focused on their control of star energy, and their realms were categorized by minute subtlety, cloudwalker, heavenly intelligence, divine eye world and esoteric. Ku Wei had once reached the heavenly intelligence realm at most, but now he had reached the divine eye realm with just a single drop of spring water. Someone gave it to me, Lu Yin said, his voice tinged with heartache as Ku Wei had wasted such a good item. This was a treasure that had been upgraded 14 times and had consumed 560,000 star essence. Even though Ku Wei had been used as an experiment, it was still a good item that could raise one's control of star energy to the divine eye realm. Lu Yin wanted to burn the bridge after crossing it, and he even wanted to get back at Ku Wei for this debt. Ku Wei was still immersed in the excitement of the spring water and did not know what Lu Yin was thinking. When Lu Yin arrived at planet Hydratink, he was naturally greeted by Sol, Phelan and the rest. Yifeng had also arrived. He was Wei Rong's trump card to split the Outerverse Lockbreaker Society apart, and he had once been a member of the Wei family. Now that Wei Rong had pledged his allegiance to Lu Yin, the group of lockbreakers that Wei Rong had brought with him had naturally merged with planet Hydratink. No one wanted to talk about what had happened back then. Lu Yin had come here to take the lockbreaking test. He was now a 1-star perceptive intermediate lockbreaker, and Sol and the others had assumed that he would take the test to become a 2-star perceptive intermediate lockbreaker. However, who would have guessed that he would directly take the test to become a 5-star perceptive intermediate lockbreaker? Furthermore, from his words, it seemed that he also wanted to challenge the boundless advanced lockbreaker test. Lu Yin's appetite shocked Sol and the others. Alliance Master Lu, since ancient times, almost no one has directly jumped from 1-star perceptive intermediate to a 5-star perceptive intermediate. The difference between the two isn't just a number, let alone the boundless advanced level, Sol said awkwardly. Lu Yin replied, That doesn't mean that it's impossible. I want to try. Sol, Phelan, Yifeng and the others exchanged glances. In the end they had no choice but to agree. The lock-breaking test had video evidence and it could not be faked. Your Highness, you can't be trying to fool us with some moldy tree root, right? This thing was unlocked from a 5-star perceptive intermediate source box? Stop joking around. Lu Yin replied, That's it. I know. The monkey suddenly exclaimed, giving Lu Yin a fright. Lu Yin subconsciously put the item back into his cosmic ring. There was something wrong with the monkey's attitude, and this item was definitely not simple. 7th bro, this is a wisdom root, the monkey said solemnly, his tone filled with excitement. Lu Yin was puzzled. Wisdom root? What's that? The monkey replied, It's the literal meaning. It's a tree root left behind by the Hui ancestor. Lu Yin was stunned. How could this be understood? It seemed to make sense, but there also seemed to be something wrong. Are you sure? Lu Yin felt like the monkey was messing with him. The monkey sighed. I read about it in a powerhouse's journal. A long time ago the Hui ancestor planted a tree, and it's said that this tree has been cleansed by the Hui ancestor's secret technique for many years. It has a mysterious power just like the power of its predecessors. This tree retains the Hui ancestor's secret technique, and anyone who touches it will gain spiritual intelligence. Things that were previously incomprehensible will be instantly comprehended, and the tree branch can be used to brew tea, detoxify poisons, increase one's cultivation and so on. It's all very magical. That powerhouse personally saw a wisdom root being unlocked, and it caused countless experts of that era to fight over it. In the end, no one knows who stole it, and he only learned about the wisdom root after hearing about it from others. This is definitely a wisdom root, just like what was described in that powerhouse's journal. Lu Yin did not believe it. Isn't it just a moldy tree branch? It's everywhere. How can you tell? This is a moldy tree branch from a 5-star perceptive intermediate source box. If it's not a wisdom root, then what is it? It's a pity that it's moldy. If it was an intact root, then you'd be rich, 7th bro. You could use it to make tea and you'd be able to comprehend any battle technique that you wanted to. To the various great powers of the blazing mist flow zone, Lu Yin was an enemy that they had to eliminate. Regardless of whether it was because of their previous conflicts or because of his unification of the Outerverse, Lu Yin had severely affected the blazing mist flow zone's interests. The most obvious change was that they themselves were not sure who was in charge of the Astral River Arkansas. The Blaze Realm, the Ross Empire, and the Sylvan Dragon clan were located in the blazing mist flow zone, which was closest to the Outerverse. They were considered the weakest of the 8 great flow zones, but they still benefited greatly from it. The cultivators who traveled between the Outerverse and the Outerverse contributed a considerable amount of resources to them, and now these resources might not necessarily end up in their pockets. This time, the Astral River Arc had set sail with the blazing mist flow zone's determination to control the Outerverse. Even if they could not control it, they would still try to break Lu Yin's rule. A master of the Outerverse who was hostile to them was definitely not in the blazing mist flow zone's interest. The Astral River churned as unknown, strange creatures shuttled through it. Inside the Ark, the battle detector would occasionally sound an alarm before falling silent. The spare Astral River Ark was not much smaller than the previous one. At this moment there were countless cultivators standing guard on the Ark. They were all from the blazing mist flow zone, and most of them were from the Blaze Realm and the Ross Empire. There were also a few dozen Sylvan Dragons, and the rest were independent cultivators who had been hired by the Blazing Mist Flow Zone. The Blazing Mist Flow Zone had not reported this operation to the Hall of Honor. Logically speaking, the spare Astral River Arc belonged to the Hall of Honor, so they should have reported it. However, their goal this time was to suppress Lu Yin, and it would be best if they could force the Great Eastern Alliance to disband. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.